Okay, sounds good. Okay, our recording has already started. And so I'm going to call council to order at 4:38 p.m. Today is Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. And before we get started, I would just like to acknowledge that, at least for us calling in person today, I'm located on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Métis nations. But recognizing that this is a bit of an interesting hybrid meeting. Some of us are located on the lands by which I just mentioned, but because many of us are calling in from home or maybe on campus as well, I don't know. But we need to be cognizant of the lands that we're all currently situated on and really center that knowledge around how we can center our advocacy and our work as a student society around that knowledge and use acknowledging our role as settlers and how we can stand in solidarity with Indigenous communities in the face of that. And so before we get into the regular business of today's agenda, I thought it would just be probably worthwhile to go over how this hybrid meeting is going to work because it's a bit new. So the first thing I just want to mention, of course, is COVID rules. So we do have in-person meeting guidelines in place. And in terms of COVID safety, the main thing that we need to remember is that we have to keep our masks on at all times. And if you do need to eat or drink, I would well, mainly eat. If you need to take a sip of water, that's fine. If you need to take it off for a couple of seconds. But if you are planning on eating, that is not allowed as per the in-person meeting guideline rules. So if you do need to take your mask off for, I would say, more than 10 seconds, I would ask that you do leave the room and then come back when you are able to keep it on. And other than that, that's mainly what we need to be cognizant of in terms of COVID safety. Now, understanding how Robert's rules is going to work in this setting is going to be a bit interesting, and it's going to take some learning, I think, on all of it. It's going to be a learning experience for a lot of us, but essentially the core components of it is that when we're voting on motions, for example, if you want to move a motion and you're in person, you can raise your hand in a way that's visible to me as the chair and still verbally say your name out loud like you would if we were on Zoom. Same with when you're seconding. We'll continue to have discussion as we do under Robert's rules. If you would like to get added to the speakers list and you're in person, put your hand up and I'll probably give you like a nod or an indication that I've added your name to the speakers list. People who are online, continue to type list in the chat, and Devin is keeping an eye on the Zoom chat tonight, and she will be adding people to the speakers list in order in that way. When it comes to voting rather, when we are ready for a vote on motions, I will continue to ask for unanimous consent on most motions, and I will continue to say the same things that you're used to hearing me say, seeking unanimous consent on the motion. If anyone would like to vote against or abstain, please raise your hand. For those of us in person, again, just physically raise your hand if you would like to make that objection, and we'll move to a roll call vote as we always do in that case. So for us here, when I say all in favor, you don't need to raise your hand indicating you're voting in favor unless you're objecting to the motion. Does that make sense? Cool, love it. What else do I need to mention? I think that's it in terms of Robert's rules. I will just ask, before we get started, are there any questions on how this is going to work in this hybrid setting?
Can I just make a quick statement / question?
Go ahead.
Just a heads up to anyone who's on Zoom, be aware that no one in person can see any of the comments that you're making in the chat. And so be cognizant of that. It's easier to list yourself. That way everyone can enjoy what you're saying rather than some council members being able to see what you put in the chat and not others. So something just to be aware about with hybrid.
Thank you, Devin, for bringing that up. Yes, it would be a lot easier if folks online did not use the chat as much as they can, because people in person cannot see the chat as they are not logged into Zoom in front of them. So the best course of action, I think, is to list yourself and speak verbally. But if you do need something in the chat to be read out loud, maybe just signify to Devin that you would like that read out loud, and then she will do that. All good? Dave?
I just have a question. So we're getting direct responses. So when we're in person, how do we communicate that?
That's a good point.
Yeah, you understand.
Yeah, so if you want to just speak to a motion, like the equivalent of a list, just raise your hand out like this. If you did want to direct respond, do this, like a peace sign. Kind of like the double star that we do on Zoom chat, just put your 2 fingers up like this, and that would indicate to me that you would like to directly respond to someone. Sounds good? Cool. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll move into roll call of attendance. And when I call on your position, oh, and one last thing, for people in person, please just speak as loudly and as clearly as possible. The mic is surprisingly good at picking things up, but if you are speaking like really quietly like this, no one can hear you. So it would be great if you could just speak up as much as you can. What was that? Okay. Roll call of attendance. When I call on your position, if you could please just state your name, your pronouns, and your access needs as per usual, and we'll get started with the archaeology representative.
My name is Damon. My pronouns are he, him. My accessibility needs are met. I am on the Zoom technically, so my camera's going to stay off since I'm in person as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Our Bachelor Environment representative has sent his regrets for tonight, so we'll move on to behavioral neuroscience. Behavioral neuroscience, are you present? Okay, we'll move on to biology.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick. My pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs have been met.
BPK.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kashish. My pronouns are she, her, and all my access needs are met for now.
Chemistry. Chemistry, are you present with us tonight? All right, cognitive science. Communications.
Hello everyone, my name is Ashran Barosha, my pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs are met.
Computing science.
Hi, my name is Ryan. My pronouns are he, him, his. All my needs are met.
Criminology.
Hi, my name is Charlotte. She, her, hers, and all my access needs are met.
Data science. Economics.
Hi everyone, my name is Mahinder. My pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs are met. Thank you.
Education.
Hi everyone, my name is Gia Troy. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and all my access needs are met.
Engineering science.
Hi, my name is Sarah. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met.
English.
Hi, my name is Liz. My pronouns are she, they, and my access needs are met.
Environmental science.
Hi, my name is Chloe. My pronouns are she, her. And as for access needs, I'm going to talk a bit quietly, so please tell me if I need to others.
Awesome, thanks, Chloe. And I'm also going to turn on the live transcript, which I forgot to turn on at the top. Film Student Union.
Hi, my name is Amelia. My pronouns are she, they. All my access needs are met, but I do need to leave at 7 p.m. tonight.
Thank you. French.
Hi, my name's Kylie. I use she, her pronouns. And as for access needs, I am just working off a new laptop today. So if I have anything funky technical wise, like I'm leaving or whatever, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to figure stuff out still. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. GSWS.
Hey everyone, my name is Devin. She, her, hers pronouns, and my access needs are met. Thanks.
Geography. Global Asia Studies. Health science.
Hi everyone, my name is Joselle, my pronouns are she, her, and all my access needs are met. I'll just have to leave at 5:30 and I'll be back at 7.
Perfect, thank you. History.
Hi, my name is Alan, pronouns he, him, and my access needs are met.
Thank you. Indigenous studies.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie, pronouns she, her, hers, and all my accessibility needs are met.
Thank you. IAC.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Felix. My pronouns are he and they, and all my accessibility needs have been met. Thank you.
The international studies representative is on a leave of absence right now and will not be joining us. Next we have labor studies.
Hello, my name is Justin Chan. My pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs are met.
Linguistics. Linguistics, are you present? Math.
Hi everyone, my name is Ben, my pronouns are he and his, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you. Megatronics. Megatronics, are you present tonight? MBB. MBB. Operations research. Philosophy.
Hi, my name is Tony, he and his, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you. Whoever's online can go ahead.
Sorry, this is for ORSU. Hi, my name is Ash. Pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs have been met.
Awesome, thank you. Physics.
Hi, my name's Graham Rich, pronouns he, him, his, and all my access needs are met.
Political science.
Hey everyone, my name is Abby, he, him, his pronouns, all my access needs are met, but I do want to wish everything be soon, feel like you know that happy early birthdays.
Oh, cool. Happy early birthday. That's exciting. Okay, cool. And Abby, I know that it still says Helen. Technically, you are the counselor now, correct? Okay, so we will make sure that that gets corrected on the minutes. Psychology.
Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany Liu. My pronouns are she, they, and all my access needs are met.
Awesome. Science Undergrad Society.
Hello everyone, my name is Zay Larry. My pronouns are he, him, his, and my accessibility needs are currently met.
Our SAS representative has let me know that they will be an hour late. I will be here when their class ends at 5:30, sorry. We'll move on to sociology and
Wait 1 second, Gabe. My class actually ended early today, so I'm here.
Go ahead, Akam.
My name is Akam. My pronouns are she, her, hers. As for access needs, I'm actually on my way home right now in the car. I'm not driving, so it's a lot more safer, but my data might cut out depending on where I am, and I might have to rejoin the meeting from my laptop when I'm home as well. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Akam. Next is sociology and anthropology.
Hi, I'm Kayla. My pronouns she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met. Thank you.
Thank you. Software systems.
Hello. My name is Shashank Thanalapati. My pronouns are he, him, his. For accessibility needs, my internet's a little choppy, so I apologize if I keep going in and out of the meeting. But that's it. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Statistics. Statistics, are you present tonight? Sustainable Energy Engineering Student Society. Theater.
Hi, my name is Claire. I'm being Samantha Walters' alternate tonight. I'll be here until about 5:30 and then she'll take over. I use any pronouns and my accessibility needs are met.
Awesome. Thank you, Claire, for being here for your counselor. We'll move on to world literature.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met. Thank you.
Awesome. We'll move into constituency group representatives, starting with the First Nation Student Association. FNSA.
Hi, yeah, I'm here. My access needs are met, but I do have a new laptop as well, so still trying to figure that one out. And my pronouns are she, her.
Awesome. Thanks so much. International Student Advocates. ISA, do you have a rep here today? Okay, SOCA.
Hi everyone, my name is Linda. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and my access needs are met at the moment, but at some point during the meeting, I'll be switching to my phone just because I'll be commuting.
No worries. Thanks, Linda. And next we have the Student Athlete Advisory Committee.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul Ursu. I'm the SAC rep. I go by pronouns he, him, and all my accessibility needs are met. However, I'll be keeping my camera off because my internet is slow.
No worries, thank you. We'll move on to the executive committee now, and we have the president, which is me. Hey everyone, my name is Gabe Leosis. My pronouns are he, him, his, and my access needs are met. And we can move on to the internal.
Hi everyone, my name is Corbett. Pronouns are he, him, his. Access needs are met. Thank you.
Awesome. Next is VP Finance and Services.
Hi everyone, my name is Almas. Pronouns she, her, and hers. All my access needs are met. I might have to switch my devices at some point in the meeting, so you guys to let me in again. Thank you.
No worries. VP University and Academic Affairs.
Hey everyone, my name is Serena. My pronouns are they, she. For access needs, I just might ask folks to like repeat themselves if I can't hear the folks who are in person especially, but otherwise they're met.
Thanks, Serena. Can someone please say something for me? I just changed some audio settings and I want to see if it worked. Can someone just confirm?
Hello?
Okay. I realized that it was coming out of Corbett's computer and not the speakers in the ceiling. So that should be a bit better. Okay, next we'll, the VP External has sent in his regrets for personal reasons. That means we can move on to the VP Equity.
Hey everyone, my name is Marie Haddad. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Access needs are met, and that's all.
Thank you, thank you. Move on to VP Events and Student Affairs.
Hi, my name is Jess. My pronouns are she, her, hers. For my access needs, if you're in the sub, are you able to talk just like a little bit louder, please? So just for notes and stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. And if anyone at any point is having trouble hearing the people in person, please just interject. You don't need to list yourself or type it in the chat. Just unmute and say, speak up, and we will speak up. We'll move on to society staff, starting with operations organizer. If Aisha is online with us tonight. Now we'll move on then to, well, Bella isn't joining us tonight either, so we'll start with administrative assistant.
Hi, my name's Christina. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you, Christina. Ilham, are you on the line with us tonight? We're just moving through our house.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
I love housekeeping.
All right. Dee, would you like to go next?
Hi everyone, my name is Biri. My access needs are met. My pronouns are has.
Fantastic, thank you. Is there any other society staff with us on the line that I missed? All right. So with Okay, sorry. Okay, so that concludes our roll call of attendance for tonight. So we'll move on to section 4 of the agenda, which is the consent agenda. And I'll read the question now, which is 4.1, be it resolved to adopt the consent agenda by unanimous consent. We have three motions under the consent agenda tonight. 4.1.1, matters arising from the minutes. For council, 4.1.2, matters arising from committees, and 4.1.3, ratification of regrets. Are there any objections to the motions contained within the consent agenda this evening? Okay, I'm seeing no objections, so the consent agenda is carried with the unanimous approval of council. We'll then move into the adoption of the agenda, and I'll read the question now. Be it resolved to adopt the agenda as presented. Do I have a mover for this motion? Abby moves. Do I have a seconder?
Zaid.
I heard Zaid first, so Zaid seconds. All right, I know there are a few amendments that people have to make today, the first of which being me. So I do just want to add a section for regrets that will immediately follow this section. And there are two regrets that I'd like to include, one of which is for Evan, who submitted his regrets this afternoon to me, and Matt, who submitted them on the basis of personal reasons. And I'd also like to just add an announcement to the end of the agenda, simply titled a leave of absence for the International Studies Counselor from September 14th to October 4th. And I will open the floor now if there are any other amendments to be put forward for this the agenda. Corbett, go ahead, please.
Okay, yeah, I sent an email out for adding to the agenda a motion to set or appoint members to the Space Oversight Committee. I also realized I missed the fact that I also need to appoint a chair for the committee. And so I'm going to need to amend that motion as well.
Okay. So you're in the Zoom room now, correct? Or no?
No, I'm not.
Okay. If you're able to
zoom into it, yeah.
No. What I would say is email it to the council thread. So then Devin can go ahead and copy and paste it into the Zoom chat for people online. Okay. Does that work for you, Devin?
100%. Just confirm these are the ones that Corbett sent by email, right?
Yeah, there's going to be an amended one from that too.
And Corbett, just based on what you sent to the to council earlier, there is also one regarding calling the annual general meeting. Correct?
Yes, there is.
Okay. So we'll also add that to our agenda tonight. And was there anything else that folks would like to put forward? Yes?
I'd like to amend the agenda to include a motion for the oversight committee appointment, which reads, whereas the oversight committee and executive officers has one open seat for non-executive counselors, be it resolved that council appoint X to the oversight committee and executive officers.
Okay. So are you able to also send that email in the that motion in the email? Perfect.
Sorry, Gabe, can you repeat the motion? I just had issues hearing it. I'm not sure if anyone else is on the same boat.
Yeah, no worries. I think someone who's logged into the Zoom room is currently pasting it into the chat. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, there it is in the chat, Devin.
Thank you.
No worries at all. Anything else before we move on? Okay. Seeing none then, we have 3 amendments that are proposed, but they need to be adopted. So I'll move that batch of amendments that were just put forward. If anyone, if I have a seconder. Marie seconds. Seeing as we had discussion on those amendments already, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent. And again, if you would like to dissent or abstain on this motion, please raise your hand, either virtually or in person, depending on where you're at. And I'm seeing no objections to this, so that carries unanimously. And we'll just move back to our we'll move back to our main motion, which now reads, be it resolved to adopt the agenda as amended. Any last amendments to go forward? Okay, we'll put this to a vote as well. All those in favor, seeking unanimous consent, please raise your hand if you would like to vote against or abstain. All right, that's carried unanimously. We have one more housekeeping item, and that is a ratification of regrets. The motion reads, be it resolved to ratify regrets from Evan and Matt. Is there a mover for this motion? Marie moves. Is there a seconder? Tony seconds. Perfect. Is there any discussion on this motion at hand? All right, we'll put this to a vote again. All those in favor, if you would like to vote against or abstain, please raise your hand. Perfect. So this is also carried unanimously. And so with that, we'll move to section 6 of our agenda, which is presentations. And the first one is 6.1, Fall Return to Campus Q&A. SFU President Joy Johnson. And Joy joins us now. Thank you for coming. President Johnson has offered to come to today's council meeting to answer any questions that we might have related to the fall return to campus. And so we have her for roughly 45 minutes. So now is your opportunity to ask those questions, but Joy, I'm not sure if you want to start off with any opening.
Maybe I'll just make a few broad comments and then I'm happy to answer questions. And so first of all, it's just such a pleasure to be here with you. Just want to thank you for the work that you do. It's really important for the student body, and I really appreciate the efforts that you put in. I will say, in terms of return to campus, it has not been a smooth and direct path to get to where we are today. And I just want to give you a little bit of context, because I think one of the things that happens is we get compared to universities in Ontario or other jurisdictions, and just to understand those dynamics, I think, is important. In British Columbia, the post-secondary sector, and so that's all the colleges, universities, and institutes, have really been working together in terms of our work return to campus plans. And I think it's really been good because it's quite confusing if universities and colleges go off in different directions. One of the things that we were clear with from the get-go is that we would take our direction from our public health officials, from Bonnie Henry and her team. And the other thing that happened is that the Minister of Advanced Education did give a directive in two forms. One was a directive to the universities that there was an expectation that we would return to on-campus learning this fall. And the other was a mandate letter to our Board of Governors stipulating that they would actually, among other things, also ensure that public health orders were followed, and in addition that we would return to on-campus learning this fall. And part of the reason for that did not happen in the spring. There was a lot of belief that we would not be necessarily in the situation we are in today, but there was a lot of concern around the mental health of students and social isolation that a number of students are experiencing. And so it felt to be really, really important to try and find a way to get us back onto campus. One thing, in the last weeks of August, we were trying to find a way, because we knew our community and we knew students also were really raising their voices around safety issues. And I want to thank you for that. I think it really does help. So we were trying to work with our public health officials to say, at a minimum, we need mandatory masks on our campuses. And at that point, the president, particularly for the Research University Council, indicated that we were going to go forward and stipulate mandatory masks. And at that time, we're asked to stand down because an order was coming. It's so much better for us when there's an order coming, because then actually it's enforceable for us. And so that order did come down, but the vaccine card came down as well around the same time. One thing that really surprised us was when the Minister of Advanced Education, Anne Kang, stood up at the press conference and said, universities can put in extra measures should they so desire. And later on in clarification, we were told that, yeah, you can put in extra measures, but you have to work in public health. The measures that you put in place have to be in line with public health. Public health has been very clear that they believe that access to education really is very important and that it really is an essential service, and have also given us direction that they will not support a vaccine mandate for our students. And so that has put us in a very interesting legal position in terms of trying to mandate something. It's so much easier for us to follow public health guidance and really follow those directives because we're in a much stronger legal standing. So to try and, again, because we kept hearing from our community about concerns around vaccination status, we did the initial survey of our faculty, staff, and students and had a really great response. And we're pretty convinced that we have a very high vaccination rate of our faculty, staff, and students. Participation in the survey for students was upwards of 60%, which is pretty good for a student survey, I've got to tell you. And for our staff and faculty, it was over 70%. And vaccination rates self-reported, albeit we're sitting around 94% for students and close to 98% for our staff. You know, we can have a discussion about how valid those findings are and whether they're representative and maybe the people who were vaccinated didn't answer the survey. But that's also part of the reason why we decided to move forward with trying to implement mandatory reporting of vaccine status and moving on to testing of people who are not fully vaccinated. Now, that decision kind of got pushed because UBC was moving in that direction. They felt it was really important. We felt pretty secure that we had high vaccination status, but thought the whole sector was starting to move in this direction. So we did implement the reporting of mandatory vaccine status. And we've again had very good participation that we're kind of following up with reminders now. And it is in our intention, even though it's a self-declaration, to put in an audit process so we can verify and let people know that we will be verifying vaccine status in a subsample. This all happened in the last week of August, basically, and to stand up the app, the web-based to do this testing or to do the self-declaration has taken some time. And now we're trying to stand up the rapid testing. And again, it takes time. You've got to hire people, you got to get tested, you got to figure out the mechanisms. So we're hoping by late next week sometime the rapid testing will be available. We're kind of, you know, it's interesting. I will say we're taking a bit of a moderate approach for the time being, because people ask us, and news asks me all the time, are you going to punish people, or if people are going to get fired if they don't go for testing, or and then they're supposed to, or if they don't declare vaccine status? And I'll be frank, right now we're working with our unions because they have strong opinions about some of this. We're, you know, I'm interested in hearing from you as well, because we're trying not to be heavy-handed. But we know that we, you know, if we don't see strong compliance, we're going to have to escalate in some way. So we're kind of, I'll be very frank, we're working it out as we go. I am really gratified that we have really exemplary mask wearing across our campus. I've had no complaints. There are some students who've sought exemption from mask wearing, and it's only, I think, 15 students in all have sought exemptions for mask wearing. And those students, their professors have been notified that there's someone in the class who has an exemption for mask wearing. So that seems to be going smoothly as well. And finally, we are working around accommodations because we do have a duty to accommodate faculty, staff, and students who, for whatever reason, under the Human Rights Code, cannot fully participate in work or student life. And there have been a number of requests for accommodation, both on medical grounds, but on other on grounds of other statutes, particularly family status. And we've got a process in place to do that as well, and that seems to be going fairly well. So just want to be clear, there's going to be bumps along the road. We'll figure it out as we go, but I really think it's important to have a good you know, channels of communication at this time, trying to figure out what questions you need answered, but also you know, it's really important for me to hear from you as well about any concerns you might have and how we might move forward together. So that's my spiel, and now I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you very much. So there's already quite a long list of people who are attending online who would like to ask questions. Again, if people in person would like to ask a question, please just raise your hand. I will add you to the list, and I'm kind of going to alternate between people online and people in person, just so that is fair. I'll add your name. But Nicholas, you're first, and you have the first question.
Yeah, sorry. So I've noticed lately that on campus there hasn't really been any kind of like vaccine passport enforcement or any checks or anything like that. So I'm wondering if, you know, something's going to be implemented in the near future that would kind of enforce that.
Right, so I'd love to hear more about that. And I think we need to be also clear where vaccine passports are required. They are required in the pub. They are required in restaurants, you know, in university. Cafeterias and dining areas where there's kind of that kind of seating, and this was one of our concerns, is if you look at this food court area, half the students there are eating, some are studying, and how can you actually implement a vaccine passport? It's pretty tricky. And there is, if you look at the order, there is an exemption. So I guess I would say, and then again, the requirement for vaccination is stipulated for people living in residence. So I guess I would say, if you do see areas where you think there should be a vaccine passport being checked, make sure you understand the order, because it indicates exactly where vaccine cards should be being utilized. But if you have a concern, I'd really encourage you to contact campus safety and let them know that there is a concern, and then they can appropriately follow up. I really encourage people not to try and reinforce anything. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. So I wanted to ask something that caught my attention with your speech, saying that we wanted to implement masks wearing even before the government made it mandatory. So I'm expecting the government is going to lift those restrictions at some point. So how is the university on there?
Yeah, so we're going to follow public health guidance on that for the time being. Right now, the order takes us to the end of October. And I think everyone's watching to see what's going to happen with the variant. And, you know, I look at the numbers every day. And they seem to be stabilizing a little bit, which is great, but we'll see where we go. So right now we're covered with the mask mandate to the end of October. And, you know, for basically the vaccine situation, it will continue.
Serena, you're up next.
Thanks, Gabe, and thank you, Joy, for joining us today. My question was, you just have to find it here. Most of the complaints that I've heard from students are from immunocompromised folks where the Center for Accessible Learning didn't offer them anything prior to the pandemic, and now they're trying to receive accommodations or adjustments and are finding themselves in a situation where they have to provide so much documentation that there's undue burden, and that the seats that were even offered to students who were already registered weren't enough. So I was wondering what SFU is doing to ensure that these folks can receive the access to learning that they need that supports their health at the same time.
Right, so thanks for that. And it's really hard for me to comment on like that issue specifically, but I will take it back and follow up on this. But I think the other thing is that we want to make sure that accommodations are provided to people who really do need the accommodations, and that's why we have the text analysis. I appreciate it does feel like undue burden sometimes, and I think that's something we really do need to look at. The other thing is that it's pretty, you know, it's pretty clear that even everyone who's immunocompromised, actually there's even more reason for them to be vaccinated. There's very few reasons for people to not be vaccinated from a medical standpoint, allergies being one. But I do think it's really important for students to be able to, that documentation process, I think, Serena, is important. But I'll have some discussion with Romana and others about what's happening there to make sure that we are being, I mean, my argument is we need to be pretty compassionate right now for people and find a way forward so that people can participate fully in their learning. But that being said, it's really tough also on professors who are trying to accommodate, manage, etc. online, some people not, you know, all of that dynamic. And to be truthful, we're getting some pushback from our professors around some of that as well. So we're trying to again find that mid ground. So I will follow up, I promise, and just get an update for myself, and I'm happy to pass that on to you.
Just, I guess maybe to state, it looks like some people might be having trouble hearing online. So if, I guess Joy and anyone else who is asking a question can speak up as loudly as possible, because these are the only two mics that are picking up the sound. So if you can speak as clearly as possible, that's probably best for our attendees online. But you can go ahead with your question.
Yeah, my question was about something that caught my eye on an email from 124. Could you provide any updates on, you said you were developing a centralized system for disclosing vaccine requirements in conjunction with Fraser Health? Can you provide any updates on that?
Right, so that's the Thrive app that you know, I'm really hoping that you all received an email asking for you to indicate your vaccine status. Just gonna check. If you haven't, I mean, this was the other tricky thing, is not everyone had an SFP computing ID initially, and so it took a little while to kind of roll this out. But the app is Thrive. It's a third-party app, and we do what we're trying to do is make sure that we're not getting out in front of public health. So, for example, the rapid tests that we are using come from public health, and we have to be in compliance with them about how they get utilized, for example. And so it was really important in that message to indicate that we're not going to make it up as we go along, but that we will get guidance from our public health officials to make sure that we are in line with expectations, and especially around the rapid testing. The other thing I will say is that the survey, we worked a lot with Fraser Health recently, and the initial survey we did, the questions came from Fraser Health. So that collaboration is really important.
Do you have a follow-up? I'll add it to this. Marie, you're up next.
Yeah, so thanks again for being here. It's really exciting. So basically, I kind of posted on the line with you to like request students to maybe possibly send photos or any concerns that they had about either the in-person classes. Some folks did share some photos, and I'll show you a couple or videos that did come up, and I'll show you some messages that were sent that were, of course, consensual. For the photos, I got sent a lot of photos, but I didn't want anything that revealed too much of anyone. So I'll just give you an example, but this is really attributed to kind of maybe thinking about a hybrid model. And it would be really awesome to maybe hear what you think of it. So this week, this is a photo from this week from 2 different classes that some students did send me. So as you can see, of course, people are literally stacked up right beside each other, which is worrisome. It looks like it's maybe over 100 people in this one class. So typically, of course, there is no social distancing. There's no like borders between anyone. It seems like if anyone was to take off their masks, there wouldn't be any guards to like ensure that that was safely done. And I also have a video of folks walking out of the theater lectures. This is it. But I don't know if you can.
Social distance where? Oh my gosh.
People were really shocked, obviously. Clearly it shows here in the halls are really congested, really hard to actually get through to people. I've personally experienced this as well in the AQs. It's so super congested, very hard to get by people, very hard to do it in a safe manner, especially when people are coming in and out of the classes, sorry. Yeah, oh my is correct, Joey. But furthermore, I did kind of ask for like student experience because I wanted some like context behind this stuff. So I will share these messages here. Someone said that you know, one of their classes was completely full by 12:30 and the person in front of them kept taking off their mask to cough. As someone with a weak immune system, they did feel extremely uncomfortable and their instructor isn't posting lecture slides online or on Canvas, so they'll have to just deal with it. Another person said it's been really frustrating for them as their family had to move to Calgary due to work issues brought about the pandemic. This person also has children. There is nothing in place to help domestic students that had to move. So they contacted many professors about sharing online, and they all reported that it's not going to be an option, and currently working with a student advocate to get help to graduate. And then they see this cram classes, people are going to get sick, and this classes are clearly really worried about precautions. One more person said that they couldn't take a photo, but you know, their class size isn't the right size for the amount of people, because everyone's extremely close. Another person said that they get anxious to sit around a lot of people, so they're sitting at the end of the row and have their friends sit closer to the middle, but there's no social distancing. People are elbow to elbow. Another person said that people are elbow to elbow as well. So really, with all of this at hand, obviously we know like cases are still high. When we're looking at this on a weekly basis, there are variants that are coming up, and that's a really big issue. And classes, of course, are not implementing proper like safety in terms of COVID with sort of social distancing and that sort of thing, no proper ventilation. So what really is what is the university doing, or what more do they need to do? And is it possible, or is it even realistic for us to have a hybrid model? Because I think a lot of students are worried and really pushing for this as well.
Yeah, so thanks so much for that. And I know people are very anxious. In our go forward guidelines, so the Ministry of Advanced Education writes go forward guidelines, and they're informed by the public health orders. There is, and I want to be clear about this, there is no requirement for social distancing anymore in post-secondary education. Actually, anywhere now. That was the 2 meters apart thing was, you know, really used at a time when people were not understanding the virus as much as they do now. And our public health officials do believe that we can be, and this was the expectation about returning to campus, that we can be full capacity in our lecture theaters. And what's interesting is that, and I appreciate that there's a bit of a, you know, it's hard to kind of wrap your head around, because on the one hand, movie theaters are supposed to be 50% capacity and lecture theaters can be full. And really it's based on the evidence that we have so far around transfer in public education settings. There is some data coming out of other countries because they came back into the university system sooner. And there's actually very little evidence of transmission in classrooms. And so that's, I think, really important to bear in mind, that, you know, as a university, we've been told there's no requirement for social distancing, that the most important thing is get vaccinated, wear your mask. And I would say, in addition to that, stay home when you're sick. And that's going to be the most important thing for all of us, is that when because flu season is coming and cold season is coming. And, you know, Maria, I really take your point, and we're working, I've got a meeting tomorrow with the Faculty Association. I really do believe if we're going to have students stay home when they're sick, we're going to need to make sure that their materials are available. Because otherwise, you know, students are going to come to, that's when we're going to really get ourselves into a whole heap of trouble, is when people start to come to the university and they're not feeling well. So we do have a number of professors who believe that their intellectual property should not be shared in that way, and there's a bit of a dynamic at play, I would say, around that. And we are trying to encourage people to be compassionate, to making materials available. And we do have some professors who really feel strongly that they are not willing to do that. And so we're working with our Faculty Association in relation to that. You know, I will say, you know, thus far, and I think we're all waiting to see what's going to happen in the weeks following and the weeks ahead. But, you know, the numbers in, you know, that we're tracking, you know, in the lower mainland are pretty good. And so I'm not really concerned about COVID cases, and we're watching carefully. And I will say, if we need to pivot, we'll pivot. I just want you to, we know that, you know, things can change, and if things need to change, we will change. But right now, we do believe that we have the mechanisms in place, particularly because we've got such a responsive community, a very highly vaccinated community.
Chloe?
Yeah, I just had a direct response. I was wondering if there's any way the university could inform people about this rapid transmission question, because that is causing a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And you know, Rick Gustafson is the deputy provincial health officer, and maybe it's coming in for town hall. You know, with the community to talk about some of this. We had a town hall in the summertime with Rika, and maybe to bring her back and to have a town hall. She's an authority. I mean, the other thing I kind of jokingly say, I've got to say, is there's a lot of people who are, you know, making claims about what should and shouldn't happen, but I say they basically are practicing public health without a license. There are professionals who are trained in infectious disease, who understand transmission. And they're the people that, you know, we should be evidence informed in our decision making, and they're the people that we should be listening to. And the other thing about RECA and the public health perspective is that we also balance the other harms that come to society, and the other harms are mental health harms for people who are isolated, and so we have to kind of think that through. But that being said, I do think we need to do more to help people feel comfortable, safe. And some of that evidence, I think, it would be very helpful. So I will follow up on that.
Happy. I think having a town hall is a good idea, but I warn that only having a town hall likely won't be the right audience.
Yeah.
Only 10% of SFU most is going to pay attention.
Yeah, so maybe think about that. Yeah.
So maybe having some sort of email blast, even having the professors meet it up before their lectures, maybe be a way to hit more students.
Okay, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. So I will follow up and see if there are some kind of, you know, some kind of very clear statement, ideally, with references that could be shared. That would really help. I agree. People are anxious, and I get that. It's tough right now, and I mean, look at us. Whoever thought we'd be having to sit around and have masks on and do this? You know, it's stressful. There's no doubt about it.
Abby, you were also on the speakers list from before your direct response. I'm assuming you had another question. Yes. Go ahead.
So what's in response to something you mentioned after Monday at the Senate meeting? You mentioned that the audit of the vaccine self declaration. What exactly is the self declaration? How will that audit be conducted?
Yeah, huge embarrassment. I don't know. You know, it's an interesting question. I mean, this is what we're trying to think through right now. And I think it's an interesting thing. I mean, is it a conduct issue for students? Potentially. We do have policies in place around this. You know, that we have, we're asking for certain things and it doesn't, you know, that's not compliance. We do have policies for our faculty, staff, and students. And it's really my hope we're not going to have to go down that road. And so I really do believe initially a compassionate approach is needed. You know, if there's not compliance, why wasn't there? Can we get corrected? Can we find out what's going on? If you're not vaccinated, let's say through individual testing. I do think there's an opportunity. My hope is that through some kind of compliance check, we won't find a lot of cases of people being non-compliant. But that remains to be seen. The other thing I will say is that we've had really great uptake of the vaccine clinics that we've had in Congo, and a lot of people got their first vaccinations. So that's really
I think you're on the list, unless it's a direct response.
No,
okay, yes, you're on the list. Couple down. Or maybe you're not. I thought I had added you. No, I didn't. You can go ahead now.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask two quick questions. And my issue is asking about if the COVID testing is going to be free or students are going to have to pay for it.
Free.
Perfect. And the second question is, are we, so is the university going to, if there was a decision to go for hybrid meetings or if there is online and offline, is the university going to push this or is it going to be left for the faculty and departments?
Right, so what we've done, just so maybe I'll back up a little bit around courses that have gone online. And maybe this is a bit of a sideline, but let me just share this. At the University of Calgary, up until the third week of August, they allowed professors to decide if they would be in person or online. They had hundreds of students moving to Calgary into residence, only to find out that they were living on campus and taking all of their courses online. And it's been a disaster for them because, you know, students wanted to be on campus. You know, they moved, they're paying to be in residence, and the courses were all online. So that's not the road we want to go down. I'll just say that. So what we've done thus far is we have a process for courses to be approved to be online. And so this isn't hybrid, this is for full online. And for those courses, they have to get departmental and dean approval. So that's that piece. We had always said to our professors, so our professors last spring were feeling pretty tired. And we always said to them, you're not going to have to dual teach. You're not going to have to do an online course and an in-person course. And I believe that's fair, you know, that you would actually shouldn't expect our professors to double their load, right? So the question is about hybrid. And even around hybrid, there are some courses being taught in a hybrid fashion right now, often to accommodate international students. But our professors are also feeling that they're very burdened by doing hybrid courses because it takes extra work. So, you know, we're putting TAs in place and we're giving them tech support and trying to, you know, do some wraparound around that. So I think the decisions around hybrid are going to have to be informed by, you know, the need, what supports we can put in place. We have done a lot in the lecture theaters to make video, you know, capture possible. And I think that's helping a little bit, but there are pockets of resistance as well. And so we're trying to nudge people along with us.
Dana?
So my question is direct response. So I'm part of 2 student unions and one of them on the faculty rep. So I go to faculty meetings and they were trying to get one of their courses or one of their, it was their honors program online for this year. But there are, you know, like there's some resistance and struggle to get there. Ultimately they did. What is necessary for the university to put a course online?
Right, so often it's pedagogical reasons. So some of the things that so I'm not an expert, you should have the provost come and answer some of these questions, but from what I understand, you know, they look at the course and they say, some courses actually shouldn't be online. Chemistry is really hard to teach online. It's, you know, certain courses, creative dance. So some courses is pretty clear for pedagogical reasons. Other ones, when there's very low enrollment, they might say, well, you know, let's make the case for it to go online. And we know some courses with large international enrollments, they moved online to try and accommodate them so we wouldn't lose those students. So there were a variety of kind of touch points to make that decision. But we made a commitment from the beginning that we would have at least 80% of classes here on campus. And that's what we're trying. That's kind of, I think we're slipping a little bit from that, but that's really been the goal that we've been trying to push towards.
Joe Sell.
I think Joey would have had to step out at 5:30. Is it okay if I ask a question on her behalf?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Serena.
Okay, I'm just finding it in the chat. Okay, Joey says, my question is regarding the classroom selection for classes, kind of related to Marie's question. There are some upper level classes, including my own, who have classes of 50 people in a room that is only a little bigger than the room this meeting is taking place in, or taking place with only a few windows at one end of the classroom? Why are we squeezing in classes into these rooms? And are there ways moving forward to ensure that more spacious lecture rooms are utilized for classes that can be in person? And also mentioned the concerns around breakthrough cases of folks have this anxiety around people who have 2 shots may still get COVID.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. So again, I'm going to answer that question as best I can. So there are a few things I'll say. One is room capacity is determined, you know, we're basing classrooms, the number of students in the classroom based on the room capacity that was designated pre-COVID. And in many ways, we don't have enough classrooms to have everyone, you know, we don't have enough large classrooms to have everyone spread out. So we're using our classroom capacity. And I know it feels tight, especially when you're used to having a lot of, you know, physical distancing from people. It makes it feel like, wow, we're really packed in. So I appreciate that. And if there is a concern about room capacity or questions about that, I think it's a legitimate question. And we should, you know, I think it's fine for students to say, what is the normal room capacity? Because we should be seeing that. I was really worried about Senate the other night that we would have a lot of people trying to come as, you know, to observe Senate, and there's a room capacity limit in that room, for example. So we were going to have to limit that. So that's one piece. I did want to mention, because this was something Marie mentioned as well, around ventilation. We have done an audit of all our classrooms, and these are classrooms that are through the booking service to ensure that they do meet the standards that are required. And, you know, and that information is posted online. You know, upgrades have been made to ventilation because of that. And so I'm really feeling confident that we've got good ventilation in place for our major classrooms. That being said, there's more work to be done in offices. I think that's another area that I'm getting questions about as well. But right now for classrooms, we're feeling very confident that we've got the appropriate certified ventilation in place. So I just wanted to mention that.
Great. So I've heard from some students, the professors, specifically a couple in class.
Sorry, I'm almost positive people online are able to speak a little louder.
So I've heard from students that professors, and specifically a couple from class, I'm not going to name the classes, but have said to their classes that they will not be enforcing wearing masks in the lecture hall. And apparently one prof was speaking about their objections to the vaccine during like a clear, like unrelated course. So I was wondering if you had any comments on this, and if you know who students can contact if professors are not following guidelines, or even like spreading misinformation or anti-vax sentiments in their classes.
Yeah, so really, thank you for that. I feel ill prepared for this question, but I do know that we have on the website a place where people can report concerns about non-compliance, and I'll make sure I follow up on that. We did say, so we had, when we worked with the faculty association, union for faculty, they said, we don't want to be the police. And I get that. They don't want to be the ones in the classroom who are having to police people. It's not in their job description. And so we agreed that that we needed a mechanism so that complaints could come in and it could be followed up appropriately. So you're right, we're not going to be expecting our faculty to police, but there is a central place, and I'm hoping it's on the COVID website, somebody please check that for me, where people can lodge concerns. And if I will make sure I track that down, because that was the plan. I just want to make sure it's been put in place. That's been one of our biggest worries, has been we don't want everyone, we don't want kind of fist fights breaking out around, you know, we are not being compliant, you know. We need a mechanism, and we also don't want to send in, you know, campus security either, because that feels very heavy-handed and pretty threatening. So we're trying to kind of take a bit of a balanced approach. But I will say, I just want to be clear about this. This is a public health order, so you can think about it as the law. And so so people are not compliant. We do need to know this institution has to follow the law, and people can be fined, and ultimately it can be a conduct issue. It's really serious. It's serious for us as an institution, but also for individuals. There are implications. So I just want to be clear about that. Thus far, so, you know, if there are big concerns about that, we do need to be caring about that. It's really important. As to people's opinions about vaccines, academic freedom, freedom of expression, it's really hard. So all we can do is keep providing information. The other thing I will say is we do know some people who are not vaccinated right now are just afraid of the vaccination still, and so there's still a lot more information.
Marie, you had a direct response or direct
Yeah.
question.
Sorry. Response.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted clarification about this. So this is really, it's good to understand, because of course, like, I don't think professors should be like enforcing something, because it's obviously a lot of labor on their plate.
Yeah.
I think what I worry about is if professors are encouraging.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
Yeah, so how would we go about this? Because I think that's what Zaid is saying, is that the professors were encouraging that that's fun.
Yeah. Well, it's absolutely not on. And
No.
so, especially around mask wearing, I would say in particular. So if that is happening, we do need to hear about it. This is not, you know, telling tales. This is, again, the law. It's a serious offense. It's something we need to be really following up on. So we will take it seriously and we will follow up.
Okay.
My question's further on that one. Should professors be doing this? What are the real possibilities of less, not punishment, but making sure they're held accountable to it with taking tenure?
Yeah. Welcome, Simon. It's complicated, you know, and so I just, you know, I'll be clear, our faculty are unionized, and the collective agreement of the union stipulates how grievances are filed, how, you know, how we deal with conduct issues. And so we would follow those mechanisms. You know, people are fairly protected, but I would say in particular around areas where there is clear direction, such as mask wearing, we would have to really push hard on this.
Devin.
Yeah, thank you. Kind of switching gears to more just supplies within SFU's campus. I've heard from quite a few students that they want to sanitize, for example, their table once they're done eating or studying, and they have not been able to find proper sanitization supplies, and they don't find that there are staff available to clean those tables or spaces after their use. So I'm curious if SFU can provide more sanitation supplies for students so they can take that initiative to clean the spaces they use, and also encourage other students to clean the spaces after use, especially in areas like the library or like Maggie Benson.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I know initially we worked hard to make sure there were more masks available. So if people forgot their masks, they can have masks. We're trying to make sure there's hand sanitizer. The cleaning of surfaces is a bit of an issue. We are doing regular cleaning, but cleaning after use is not something that our staff are going to be able to do. We need to have people kind of comply and help with that. I know there was some initial discussion on providing supplies, and I think it comes down to cost and availability, but I'll take this under consideration as well. I'll share it and we can see what we can do. I mean, the other thing I'd say to you, and I know it's another cost to students, but I'd say, you know, we all have to kind of take care of ourselves. I carry my hand sanitizer and I, you know, try to think about what I can do myself. And I just think we all need to also take personal responsibility as well, as best we can.
That's it.
Thanks. Yeah, just kind of just a bit adding on to what Marie said there. You know, I've been going to Mackenzie Cafe. And that place is really, really open, like with people, everybody, you know, sitting quite close to each other. A lot of people without masks, of course, they're eating. So, you know, just adding on to what Marie said, I really do think that we should be, you know, that the university could be supplying us with, you know, paper towel or ethanol like we do in our labs, and we use it quite a bit there. It's not that difficult to make as well. And, you know, you can use it as a policy, but people to, wipe down the table after they're finished eating, as well as also putting up some kinds of shields or barriers around at the tables, because especially the tables, where they're like right beside each other, there's nothing like in between you. You're all sitting like backs to each other, and there's the person in front of you. So we could look into like installing that kind of stuff around all of the eating areas on campus, and supplying basic things like paper towel and ethanol. I think that would be a really good step for us.
So yeah, so thanks for that. One thing I will say, again, is that, the evidence again, and they talk about fomites on surfaces as being potential, I think there was a lot of concern about surfaces harboring the COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And there's not a lot of evidence that's why we don't have multiple cleans a day, because the evidence is not such that there is a lot of transmission off surfaces. It really is, the aerosolization is the concern, and I can see why you're concerned about being in the restaurant in that way. So I'll take up on that. I will ask the question about cleaning as well, so what we might be able to do. I think that's very helpful.
Sure.
My question is more so kind of just like in terms of the larger scale plan. So I'm fully in support of like making sure that we're sticking with the PHO and following the proper instruction on this. But it kind of felt like there wasn't a bit of a contingency set in place, at least for this week or last week. I mean, seeing as like we all know the guidelines can be pushed back or forth, and there can be a lot of ambiguity around them. That maybe having a sort of university level plan, at least in the event that something gets pushed, because like you said, in October, right, they come out with new guidelines or the current guidelines end. And I feel like having at least some sort of backup plan before then would be nice, just so students can go into the month of November knowing, hey, we're not going into this month blind. So I guess I'm mostly just asking, like, was there thought put into that for, I guess, last week, and is there plans to be working on that for next month, as you said, the guidelines are?
Yeah, so we are absolutely in touch with public health all the time, and our Ministry of Advanced Education. And we're learning a lot these first few weeks out. But we are also trying to develop contingency plans so that if things change, we will be prepared. So yeah, so I mean, I hate to say it, kind of rest assured that we're on it. We're trying. It's really hard to plan for things that you're not for outcomes you're not exactly sure will happen. But we pivoted quickly to move people online when we needed to. We know we can do that. There are a number of things that we know we can do if we absolutely have to. So, I think that's what we're doing. It's kind of watch and wait, make sure that we've got backup plans in place. Keep talking to the Ministry of Advanced Education about what we need, so that people, I mean, I say are safe, but I think it's also important on this one hearing in this room, not only are safe, but feel safe. Because it's really hard to learn if you don't feel safe. So I think those are kind of two elements that we're really paying attention to right now as best we can. That being said, I'm hearing today that students are really concerned. On the other hand, I will say it's been incredible to see students on campus having fun, milling about, getting to see their friends again. I mean, that's also been very, very heartening. And I think we should lose sight of that as well.
So just like, for instance, like in saying March, we went online, that was kind of done out of the
was terrible.
Yeah, it was like we didn't essentially know, it was just 2 days and then everyone can then sort it out. So like, God forbid, we get worse or anything, but potentially in November, maybe we have to go back online. But potentially like saying, hey, there is a plan in place for this, we're making that plan public, at least to say, this is what we have planned in the event that this happens. I think would go a long way in like making students feel a lot safer, like that there is, plans being done, not only for the next 30 days, but for like the next 60 days, the next 90 days.
Yeah, so I will say it's very, right now, based on the knowledge we have, it'll be very unlikely that we go fully back online. We might do other things, and we're thinking about what those other things are, but I think that we all realize how difficult that was. And there are other things that we can put in place. We've talked about hybrid, we've talked about other ways to thin out you know, people coming onto our campus. We know there are mechanisms. But I have to say at this point, we learned a lot. And, you know, the other thing, and this is the depressing thing, COVID-19 is not going away. It's going to be endemic. So we're moving from pandemic to endemic. It's going to circulate in the same way that some of us get through some years, you know, it's going to be around. And so we have to, that's the hard pivot we're making now, is learning how we're going to learn to live with it. And eventually, hopefully, as we become more vaccinated, those of us who get COVID won't become as ill. And that's the evidence, is that people who are really sick in the hospital, for the most part, are people who are vaccinated. So that's a kind of a cold hard reality, but it's also really real.
Kylie, looks like you're up next.
All right, thank you. So I apologize if this has already been answered. It is quite hard to hear sometimes. I know Abby touched on it with the town hall and the email blast. The students that I was talking to really feel that the decisions regarding the return to campus were made without any meaningful discussions with the students or the staff, really. And they want to know if this will be the case for future decisions during the pandemic, and what your plans are to try and like get more student thoughts in regards to returning to campus and the future of this pandemic.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And in many ways, we're running fast on some of this stuff. I do think, I mean, that's part of the reason I'm here today. I think it's important to hear from students about, you know, what the concerns are, what the issues are. And I realize more and more we need to work together. You have a really good mechanism for outreach to students and share information, and we do need to work together. So I would say, in terms of staff, I think it depends on, we did have a lot of staff involvement and faculty involvement in decision making. I would say probably less so for students. I think it is important to speak about students.
Kashish?
Hi, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, since we've touched on it a lot in this whole conversation, basically the anxiety about returning to campus and a lot of people not feeling safe to be in small classrooms with a lot of people. And we did talk about that if people are sick, they should stay home. But then I was also thinking that if people are staying home, they're sort of sacrificing their education for that, and that education is simply being less accessible to them, since a lot of the professors are also not recording lectures if the class is in person. I have been doing, we've been doing some surveys, and we've noted that about 35% of professors will not be recording lectures. And I think that makes lectures very inaccessible to people who would like the chance to stay home if they're feeling sick, or if they have simply, if they're taking care of another loved one who is sick. And you also mentioned that a lot of the reluctance that you're seeing is because professors do not want to share their intellectual property. I was wondering if there is any way that you could encourage or motivate the faculty to be recording lectures. It's not even just video or like just audio lectures they could be recording, and something that could be provided to them as a motivation is something like tenure reviews. And you also mentioned that since you have been in talks with faculty to encourage lecture recordings, Kylie also mentioned that students should also be involved in some of the decisions that you're making. And I was thinking, if it is possible, I think student opinion should also factor into talking to faculty about making lectures more accessible to recordings and whatnot.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you're saying around that accessibility issue. And it's an ongoing conversation, is all I can say, is trying to nudge people along and encourage this. I would also say students, and I don't want to put it all on you, but I think you can help each other in this regard as well, by sharing your notes with each other, by, you know, making sure that, you know, that within the context of the student body, that people have each other's backs, because I think that's going to be an important element as well. And we will continue again, as I mentioned, in this group tomorrow. and that's the Park Union, and I'll raise these issues. I'll mention that we have a meeting and that these are the concerns for the.
Zay, you have a question about that?
Yeah, I guess when we're talking about communication with students, if they use student input and these kinds of discussions here, so I'm wondering, are there any kinds of committees or working groups that are, established with either faculties or departments or even at the higher level, like SFU, for students to be, consulted aside from town meetings or town halls, something like that.
Yeah, so maybe a couple of things on that. I mean, one of the key areas that students, there are two key bodies at university for students who have employees. One is Senate, and we got senators here with us, and I think that's terrific. So Senate's important because a lot of this information, we heard a discussion on this topic at Senate on Monday. No, that was just Monday. We heard discussion on Monday about that. So Senate, and then the Board of Governors, and students also have representatives on the Board of Governors, another important body. So I just want to really remind us about these two entities really being important, and we've seen the power of Senate, right, in terms of moving agendas forward. So in terms of others, I know of a number of departments and faculty have health and safety committees. I can't answer who sits on those committees, how representation takes place, but I think it's a question worth answering because there's a lot of local health and safety committees that are discussing these things about how on the ground we can continue this issue. So I encourage people to follow up and ask about that.
So there was a couple of follow-ups on this question in particular, and Paul, you have a follow-up.
Yeah, so I know we talked about, and many people brought up the idea of hybrid lessons and what's going on with intellectual property. But one common ground that I was going to bring up in my question, but now seems appropriate, is with today's technology that's available, why or is it possible to potentially live stream lectures at the concurrent time that the prof is teaching it? So therefore, there's still that commitment of being present in class during the specific time. If you're staying at home, you can still attend, and it still protects the prof's intellectual property. That's just one thought with regards to that. And then from that point, there also doesn't have to be recording. There doesn't have to be any other type of like interaction, and the student can still ask questions in the chat if that could be checked by like the prof if it's on screen or someone else. Especially with free websites such as Twitch or even YouTube that do live streaming, this could be a viable option. I realize that wouldn't be probable for this semester, but could this be something that could be integrated for the following semesters?
Yeah. So we do have some lectures that are being live streamed right now. I agree. I'm 100% behind you. I think that we've got technology, we can utilize it. Not every class, though, the other thing to realize, not every class is in a lecture modality. Small group work happens, interaction, hopefully other things happen in classrooms besides lecturing. So it's also trying to think through how to use technology creatively in those circumstances. But I hear you. I mean, it's taken a lot to get, it took a lot to get everybody online when we had to all go home when the pandemic began. And this is, we're talking a lot of people who never really, like, Zoom is brand new to everybody, right? Like it's taken a lot, and we still have people who are quite resistant, and we're just gonna have to find ways to bring them along.
Marie, did you still have a follow-up?
Yeah, so in terms of the comments about these sharing notes and that sort of thing, specifically during COVID, I've noticed that professors are actually more hesitant to allow students to share notes, share anything from lecture, share recordings, any of that sort of thing, and they've put it into their course policy in the syllabus. So
I'd like to see that. That is, to me, unbelievable.
Yeah, honestly, I have some classes that have definitely had this. So
I'm gonna definitely. I just find that, if you can't help each other out.
Exactly.
Stay home, I find that unbelievable.
Yeah, so if we could chat about that, that would be awesome. Even when I put it in the chat here, so many of the counselors even agreed with it. So I don't want to be putting students in jeopardy.
No, I totally agree. I had no idea, and I don't want to put them in jeopardy either. Okay, I find that quite surprising, and
That's
that's
the hard-
definitely what I'll follow up. on,
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
professors have to actually get a designated student in a class to be able to provide a student's notes. They're like a designated note taker. So,
Wow.
yeah, so.
Wow, I had no idea, things have changed.
Very technical,
Yeah.
so it might be good to follow up on
Okay, I
that
will follow
and
up.
then
Yeah.
some adjustments in class for
You know, and I
sectors.
appreciate, I mean, I remember back in the day at the university, you know, we shared notes, sometimes they were awful notes, right? But
Yeah.
you really depend on, you know, someone to take appropriate notes, and
Right.
sometimes you left out, and other times not.
Right.
It looks like we have about, well, after this follow-up, four more questions, and then that'll be it, but go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I wanted to go back to the topic of student engagement with this conversation. And I was actually asking whether you think it'd be a good idea, for example, to post a survey to see, okay, how many students would like the recorded for lectures to be shared more live streamed, et cetera. Maybe that might allow you a little bit of power, a little bit of leeway to convince the faculty and the teachers that, hey, a lot of students want this, here's the numbers, you have it in front of you.
Yeah.
So would you, this might help you out.
Yeah, so there was a survey, that was done of students, I think, last spring, about their experiences, but it was mostly around their online experience, but it did cover preferences as well. So we know students want hybrid. Don't get me, you know, a lot of students love being in class, but there are people who will want options as well. I've always said, and I'm clear about this, we will be a bricks and mortar university. If you want a totally virtual university, there's other places to go. To me, this Simon Fraser University is a place where we will have on-campus learning. But that being said, with these dynamics, we need to think about how to be flexible right now. So I think there has been, the Center for Educational Excellence has done some survey work. And I think some of that's available, but I agree with you. I think we need to understand what students want. They'll vote with their feet, right? And their tuition.
Okay, so I think for the remainder of the questions, so I can get to the people who haven't had the chance to ask a question yet, I'm gonna just suspend follow-ups. But for the rest of the folks on the list, we'll get to you, and the next is Kayla. If you're there, Kayla. Okay, maybe we'll circle back to you if you're just having tech issues. But Paul, you're up next.
Yeah, so I had one very quick question. I don't know, not sure if it was already answered or talked about, I couldn't hear it, but about the vaccine declaration. So about like a way to check that, would there be a possibility to resend that out with an option to upload the photo, or a requirement to upload the photo of your immunization card? Because that would be probably the quickest and easiest way to check that. And that also allows people to see who has 1 or 2 vaccinations. And then my second question is, like, I understand there's a lot of stuff going on beyond the scenes. I mean, I'll be communicated to us and be made transparent, especially with what's going on with profs. But I know that from at least my experience and those that I've talked to, like, none of the profs are budging whatsoever on making things more accommodating for students, or instead insisting that this falls under our burden for taking this class and we just have to deal with whatever's going on. So is there any way to ensure that profs can be also making concessions to allow it and understand that students do have to work during this time? Students are living away from home. Students are having to commute and may be uncomfortable during this time, and yet they still have to put all of this aside to attend a lecture and then put aside way more. I just a little bit frustrating because after so many semesters away and having to make so many more concessions during that time, profs just seem to be becoming less and less understanding from just this side of things.
So yeah, thanks for that, and thanks. You know, again, I will follow up. I think we can message to our professors, encouraging them to be compassionate, flexible, etc. I think that's going to be very important. With regard to uploading of photos, I mean, we stood up the website very quickly, and we have a few issues with 45,000 people uploading images you know, what to do with that, how one manages that, etc. So it sounds like a great idea, but then how to actually do it becomes a bit of a challenge. And then there are some privacy issues related to what sits on those cards. So we're looking at it. I think we will be relying on either the vaccine card or people's paper cards as we move into validation. But I appreciate the point, and it is something that we've given some thought to. And I know other universities are thinking about it as well. So the other thing is, I don't know about you, those little cards are easy to come by. And so again, there's a lot of issues about how valid are they, and then for international students, they have very different types of documentation, and then some very many different languages. So you know, how do we do that?
The next question is mine, and a while ago, you talked about mask exemptions, and some students are starting to apply for that for whatever reason that they would not be able to wear a mask. And you had mentioned that in situations like that, the professor would be notified that there is a student in their class who has a mask exemption. What I heard, and please correct me if this isn't correct, but is the professor not notified of which student that is?
Oh, this is so complicated, Jake.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, the way it's happening right now, is that they're told you have one student in your class who has a accommodation. Again, because of privacy issues, that they're not told who that is, but we're encouraging the students to go and tell their professor, I'm the person who has an accommodation. That's the way it's going to work the best, I think, is for that conversation to take place. But that, again, puts a lot on the student, but we're kind of caught in these privacy issues around accommodation. So from my understanding, that's the way it's working right now. Again, there are so few of them. I think that it's getting sorted out.
Okay. Corbett, you have the last question.
Special. Okay. I live in residence, and residents, students and residents require to have full vaccine.
Yeah.
However, well, I'm assuming that's kind of the case. However, there's a lot of activity that happens that's generally viewed as the way to spread COVID.
Yeah.
And cause infections. You know, there were during the first move-in or the first night that students were in the first week, there was sizable events going on around the campus in residence areas, but almost nobody masked. Fortunately, mostly outside, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
But I have no idea if they went inside or not. Definitely personal parties, things like that. That happens usually every weekend.
Yeah.
If there's an outbreak, will students be notified?
Right. So the way it works is that if there's someone is tested positive for COVID-19, the public health system comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is contact tracing. So they'll sit down with that person, they'll say, where you been, who you been hanging out with, and assess the dynamics that are taking place in that person's life. And if they deem it necessary, they will start to contact trace. So they'll say, give me their names and numbers, and we'll start to follow up. So there are people out there, thousands of people hired to do contact tracing. So the university does not do contact tracing. We don't get involved in it, and we are not notified. People will self-notify, and sometimes public health will let us know if we do have cases, but it really is up to public health to notify. So if there is a concern about potential outbreak, then public health will make a decision potentially, and we saw this, in other circumstances where there's a general notification: if you were around this place at this time, you should go get tested. So that's starting to happen less and less now because they're very good at the contact tracing.
Okay. It looks like this concludes the questions for tonight. I just want to say thank you again, Joy, for making time to come out and answer our questions. Very appreciated. And we learned a lot of valuable information. So
my pleasure. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Your meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Bye. So at this time, I think it's probably in our best interest to take a break. So it's 6:12 now. I think we can take about a 10-minute break. Our agenda is relatively compared to other agendas, small. So I think we can take a 10-minute break without worrying about ending overtime. So come back at 6:22.
So is that
Yeah.
Are you shooting a challenge?
Please don't hold me to that.
Fair enough.
Okay.
We're done recording.
Oh, we didn't pause the recording. Should we pause it?
Yeah, it's on this computer.
We'll pause it, we'll pause it.
Yeah, I'll pause it. Just 1 second.
All right, everyone. I'm going to reconvene council at 6:23. And just before we get started with the rest of the agenda, I think I just kind of want to reiterate, I was seeing some comments in the online chat about people having difficulty hearing. So I might just reiterate again that if possible, please speak up as loudly and as clearly as you can. And I may just kind of signal to you maybe like this if I feel like you might need to speak up a bit louder. But with that, our next agenda item is, or the next section of our agenda rather, is section 7, which is report from committees. And we'll begin with 7.1, which is report from the executive committee. And I believe someone is able to share those slides.
I can.
Marie?
Yeah, just give me a second, please. I just need to refresh just in case anyone else wrote that.
If you're wondering, mine is blank.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay.
That's fine. I just need to-
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Sorry, give me one. Oh, am I not in the Zoom? Oh, okay. I'm just gonna hop onto the Zoom again.
Okay.
Unless someone else can do it.
Wait, Jess, are you present right now?
Hello.
Do you happen to have the slides up?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on. Do you see it on the TV?
Yes. Do you mind going into presenter mode? Oh, how's everyone? Is that good for everyone?
Yeah.
Mac?
I'm presenting.
Presenter mode is best.
Are we recording now?
Yes.
Oh, awkward. Okay.
Okay, so this is a report from the executive committee from the last, I guess it's 3 weeks since council met last. If you want to go to the first slide, Jess. I didn't, obviously I did nothing for the last week, I'm kidding. I just, like, if I'm being honest, I did not fill out the slides, but I can give you an overview of what I did do over the last 3 weeks. So, you know, a big component of my last 3 weeks, what is this? Oh, I'm backing up a bit. I'm going to talk about some things we discussed at our last executive committee meeting, and then I'll go into the specific executive committee, what specific executive committee members have been working on. At our last executive committee meeting, we passed some updated guidelines on in-person meetings and how they're held, and particularly taking into account COVID-19 safety, some of those rules of which we went on discussed at the top of the meeting. We passed a motion to endorse another motion that was being brought forward to the SFU Senate to hire 15 Black tenure track faculty at SFU. And so the executive committee, our goal was to bring it to council. Council was not meeting in time for that to happen, but based on issues, policies of ours and previous motions we have passed, the executive committee endorsed it, and it passed at Senate actually on Monday night, which is a really exciting achievement. Yeah, it deserves applause, and there was a lot of work and labor put in by Black student activists and community leaders to make that happen. We also had some in-camera discussion items, which obviously I can't talk about. But then we had multiple discussion items, some of which included updates on making it possible for executive committee members to make their jobs essentially co-op, so that provides an opportunity for executive committee members to take the semester off of classes while still earning credits as a student. We also discussed how fall of 2021 committee meetings are going to work. We kind of did a roundtable on if people had called their committees yet, had scheduled their committees, and discussed whether or not we were essentially the details of hybrid meetings and how they were going to work. We talked about the Burning Mountain Gondola and where we're kind of at with that. We're kind of at a point where if this were brought to City Council, Burnaby City Council, which is kind of the last hurdle we need to get over as a community for the gondola to happen, we're pretty sure that it will pass at Burnaby City Council. It's just a matter now of really connecting with the people we know are in favor on City Council and trying to push for it to be brought forward and a resolution to actually be brought forward to the council table. We discussed a meeting that happened this morning actually between members of the SFSS Executive Committee, SFU VP External Martin Pacheco, and a couple of other folks on the SFU side regarding SFU's budget process and really how it works. And we're going to have another follow-up meeting with them, I believe at the beginning of October, to have a more in-depth discussion about the SFU budget and our concerns and feedback as it pertains to the university's budget. We also discussed clubs days in some detail, discussed the BC vaccine cards and an event that Jess helped organize the first, some tabling that we did on the first day of classes at the front of the student union building to welcome students on the first day of classes and show them and welcome them with wide open, warm arms to the student union building, which most people were seeing for the first time that day, September 8th, I believe it was, or 7th. So Jess, if you'd like to go to the next slide, which I mean isn't really helpful because it's empty, but I will give an overview of what I have worked on over the last three or so weeks. Kind of going back to when we had our last council meeting, which was 3 weeks ago. My biggest focus was the student union building and making sure that it was opening and that everything was really in place. My role really as president was to make sure that our staff felt comfortable and they were comfortable in the new building and knew where they had to be and what they had to do. And also as part of that week, I got to attend many of the sub-stock opening events. So I got to give multiple speeches to alumni, SFU stakeholders, past board members, current counselors, some of whom were there as well, and got to, I think, how many tours do you think we did? Like 12. So it was quite fun. Further, we've also had a couple of meetings now, myself and Jess, around proof of vaccination and kind of how that system is going to work out, meetings with the university on determining and kind of figuring out the logistics of how that was going to work. Of course, we've learned more details since then on how that system is going to be used, particularly in the university setting, and how it's going to impact clubs and student unions in particular. And I will say guidance is updated guidance rather is expected to go out to clubs and student unions this week, particularly as it pertains to the proof of vaccination, BC vaccine cards. And I've been doing a lot of media interviews. That's the other thing too. I have been on CBC News Radio. I've been on Global News, been on News 1130. I've been on CBC. Just trying to raise awareness about a lot of the concerns that we actually talked about earlier in this meeting about the return to campus and COVID-19 guidelines. Real concerns that students are facing around, why vaccines aren't mandatory, why there isn't social distancing requirements, why we don't have a hybrid system in place, what's going to happen for people who are immunocompromised themselves, or having immunocompromised family members, and we're putting those people in harm's way. So I've been doing a lot of advocacy and trying to bring these issues forward. And I think for the most part, those are kind of the big things that I've been working on. Of course, I continue to, a big part of our job as executives is a lot of administrative work, so I spend a lot of time answering emails and messaging and just kind of sitting in front of my computer, but that does take up a lot of time. So I think I'm gonna leave it there for my report, and we can pass it off to Corbin, if you'd like to proceed.
Thank you. Okay, so just some of the comments, some of the emails that I think are pretty important, just mentioned there, but there's pretty much everything I've worked on will also have follow-up emails and such. So yeah, robot soccer, we've been going back and forth for a while about getting information. They've got some items they need like to store, so we're double checking if we can give them storage space or not based on the items they're looking at. There's also another group, all the different music clubs are also doing something similar. So that's John has mostly been working with them to get that sorted out. Starting up the SFSS MLE working group, we met last Friday. We'll be meeting again this Friday. Council turnover. There's some. I've been going back to staff with our council turnover tracking process because the current process is not the best when it comes to communication. So we already have a solution of like having a direct as a resignation form that can be filled out and that pings all the relevant people and staff. So things need to be much more faster and much more effective. Having conversation around the PHO impacts for bookings and events, and also the two main committees I've been chair of, member meeting, planning committee and governance to get their schedule meetings and stuff scheduled. Also outside of that, I reviewed the sub accessibility audit reports. Then we got that back from Level Playing Field. The nice things is the sub was quite well designed for a lot of accessibility focused needs, but I think there's more improvements to be made. Some that we knew about, had them we had identified, and then some that was news to us. So it's good. And they also focus a lot on SFUs and accessibility around access to the building, like some parking areas and such. So we'll give that to SFU as feedback so they can hopefully make improvements. And we can also push down them to make improvements, make the campus more accessible. I was part of member services administrative assistant interviews. There was actually 12 in total, but I was part of 8 of them. And it was over 2 days. There was one day where 6 of them, where it's like almost back to back. So that was a little rough. A number of execs went on an SFE stadium tour, and we met with the athletics director to bring up some issues. But yeah, because we also want to talk, we've been talking to them about putting SFS logos and information on this data because students are going to be paying like over half the total cost of the full project over the next 13 or so years through the Build City Fund. And so we think it's important that people that go to this stadium know about this. Onboarding Addie, the new KSSU counselor, council dev sessions that many of us went to. A big project on the side I've been trying to sort out is the Build SFE funding, like researching how to access it properly, because the way you access it, we access it when the sub was being built is different than how it is after the fact, and it's not 100% clear based on all the different agreements and stuff we're doing. So I've been interacting with our lawyer and different staff and people from SFE and stuff to try and get this all in a one nice big package so that we can get that to council and also for future councils and executives know how to access this particular level of funding. Additionally, there's some small stuff. There was some access control issues on one of the holidays. I came by and saw that the building was unlocked, so I had to go in and we had to coordinate with security to lock the building and encourage everyone to leave because there's no staff there, so it's a safety issue. Help tabling for the first day of school, as well as the federal election registration, as well as club days. So that was that. All 3 of those things happened this week, and a little bit last week. I also covered for the building manager last Friday because he was away, and so we needed somebody in the building. So I was happy to help him out and work with some staff. We also met with SFU residents about the 2023 housing rates, specifically for the new buildings and how much they're going up. And we advocated a lot on affordability and what SFU is doing to keep the rates as low as they can, or ideally lower them. And the fact that, there's a lot of little areas that are going up tuition, when you factor in the rents plus tuition plus, increases in the food costs and stuff on campus, like meal plan. It's kind of like boiling a frog, like slowly, but slow increase in heat to the point where like no one knows it until it's too late. And yes, I also met about the SFS exec co-op memorandum of understanding. That's the agreement between SFS and SFU around getting the executives, because they're full-time roles, that we recognize the co-op. This will benefit in international students and students that are on, say, like in scholarship programs and stuff, they don't have to necessarily have to take 3 or 4 classes to maintain their status, and as well as also try to be a full-time executive. So this gives more flexibility for future executives, current and future executives. Yeah, that's really about it. Just a couple more meetings and working on some of the building coordinator job description updates. So
Cool.
a lot of stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Corbett, for your update. Next, we have the VP Finance and Services, Almas. Almas, you have the floor to give your update. Whenever you're ready. Almas, are you present with us? Almas just said 1 sec. Would you like us to circle back? I think we're going to do that. Can we move forward to Serena, Jess, and we'll return to Almas afterwards.
Okay, hey everyone. I don't really have much of an update because I've been on a leave of absence and I just got back on Monday. So basically just doing a lot of general catching up on stuff, a lot of emails, but I've gotten back to everyone. So thank you very much for your patience. The Senate meeting, that was my first day back, kind of anxiety ridden, honestly, to come back to such an important motion of hiring 15 Black tenure track professors, but I'm so glad that the motion passed. One thing I was doing over my leave of absence was helping SFU 350 with their climate emergency declaration and hopefully bringing their presentation to the Board of Governors. So went to meetings with them and worked on the motion, and I believe that they're on the agenda, so excited about that. Table of Student Societies had an emergency meeting about elections. As you know, Elections Canada said that they're not going to be putting polling stations on any university campuses, which is effectively a form of voter suppression. So TSSU, Teaching Support Staff Union, and the GSS, the Graduate Student Society, are working together to put out some resources so folks know how they can vote, and also some resources that I thought this was a really great idea to send to the professor so they can say, hey, look, could you excuse me from class today so I can go vote, especially for people with really packed schedules. I also want to mention one more thing. Well, yeah, hiring committees, starting back up again, hiring some more admin assistants as well. But I think that's most of it for me. Of course, if you need to reach me, you can always do so. But that's all. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your update, Serena. Almas, are you prepared to speak now?
Yeah, sorry, I was just taking my food.
It's okay.
Okay, so we'll start with hiring committees. I am on 4 hiring committees right now. I will start with the first one, which is the building assistant. Our initial plan was to hire between 8 to 10 people, but for now we've just hired 8 people because the building is not open on the weekends. They will be starting next week, and The last week, I've been checking people's references, collecting their availabilities, and asking about any of the special needs that they might have. The second hiring committee that myself and Marie are on is the Bullying and Harassment Case Manager Committee, which is partly run by SFU. We did 2 interviews. The third person canceled out, and they decided to take their name back. It was actually an internal candidate. The committee has been working on getting their notes in and also doing their references. So I believe this committee should end next week as well. And we have a potential candidates. It's just that we want to make sure the references say the same things that they said in their interview. For the Digital Media Assistant Hiring Committee, myself and Jess are acting as employer representatives on this one. We've received tons of applications for this, and the skill sets of people are great. Some of them even have masters in design and other such degrees and really good experience as well. We will be meeting Friday, if I'm not wrong, and we will be discussing the next steps and also picking up who we want to interview. The last one is the Faculty of Science Dean position. It's still in the very initial stages. From the timeline that I've received, it looks like we will take about 5 to 6 months to hire for this position. And the end result or the person hired will be, I think, around February, but we will be meeting in the last week of September. Next up, we have emails administration tasks, and I think I wanted to write something else, but I missed that. Sorry for that one. I received a crazy amount of emails regarding U-passes. A lot of people are really mad that they do not qualify for the U-pass because they're doing the co-op terms, versus there are some people who are not using the transit and driving their own vehicles but still have to pay for it. So that's something I'm planning to discuss with the appeals committee this time, because I've had tons of people report in these 2 scenarios, and as of now, there's not much we have in the policies previously set to help them. In terms of the main email threads that I've had, we're trying to open a business account for our cell phones for staff members who are usually out of their offices and need something handy. The next one is stipends, of course, and some retroactive invoicing from DNA. This is something that has recently come up today, and Serena's been helping me in this one. Corbett's been working on creating SOPs for a variety of different roles, and recently he very kindly taught me how to make the CRA payments. So that's something I'm helping them on, for creating a SOP for how to make CRA biweekly payments, so that incoming executives and anyone who might want to do it in future can benefit from that. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, so work reports as usual. Council members have submitted their work reports, and I've just filled up the amount of hours they've spent on different tasks, and also tracking down their number of hours, and also sending out emails to people who haven't been submitting their work reports. I usually send them in 2 batches. The first one is right after the work reports are due, and then another one 15 days later, telling them, well, that if there's a reason, they can let me know, or we will be deducting their stipends. Next up are the number of meetings that I've attended, which includes the executive development sessions, SFU budget information meeting that Gabe was speaking about earlier, the MSc journalist meeting.
I think that's almost it. Did Amos cut out, or did we cut out?
No, almost cut out.
Okay. If we cut out, we had a big problem. Okay, well, almost, you just had overtime anyway. So, that's good. We can move on then to, who's next? I guess we can just, Matt's not here, but we can read this out loud. Here, I have it on my glasses on. So it looks like some key meetings that Matt attended. The External and Community Affairs Committee met twice. In particular, it looks like they were working on some federal elections, planning a campaign. And so over the course of this week, the ECA has been organizing some tabling events in the sub to encourage students to vote and to really put out some campaign material around the campus on the importance of voting and how to vote and where to register to vote. They've also been working on some prep for lobbying. That's going to be coming up over the next month. Matt and I in particular had some tours, student union building tours with some notable politicians, one of which was the Advanced Education Minister, Ang Hang, who is here on Friday. And then the new Westminster Mayor, Jonathan Cote, was here the week prior. And then all of the executives had a tour with Teresa Hansen, who's the Director of Athletics and Recreation of the stadium that just recently completed. And it's a very, very stunning site. We also had an opportunity to show the president of the BCIT Student Association around because BCIT SA is working to build their own student union at BCIT, student union building rather, at their campus. And so it was kind of nice for them to see our site. Oh, okay. And then some other notable things that Matt worked on were the sub-soft opening, tabling on the first day of classes, and planning the Every Child Matters campaign for National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. If I'm not mistaken, it's Marie next. Marie, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so obviously probably everyone mentioned the SFU Stadium tour. A couple things extra from the SFU Stadium tour. As we are stakeholders, we're kind of wanting to kind of establish publicly what that means for the SFSS. So for instance, like back room, like private, like you could go into the back room private areas during games, which is pretty cool. But we actually wanted to talk separately about having the directors come here for a tour and us doing a specific tour for athletes as well. We also discussed things that would be happening, you know, in September 30th, how they would be honoring Truth and Reconciliation and kind of the steps forward that they'll be doing for their games since they have a game on that day, which they're going to be doing some cool stuff. So you should go check it out. Secondly, I have been part of the Black Student Support Center Initiative meeting. So we've been discussing really the starts to the center with faculty and Black student activists who initiated this from the BIPOC committee. So we kind of brainstormed what was needed for the center and kind of additional steps forward. Then we had a tour with the Minister of Education, Ann Kang. We kind of took her down to where the Rotunda community folks are as well, kind of said the history behind it, how SOCA championed that 2-year movement for space, and how folks like SF Kurd really helped in that case as well, and reasons why all of them are there, which is really cool. And then we actually discussed with her even concepts of just like criminalization of drugs in schools, policing on campus and in schools, kind of heard what she thought about that, which was really cool as well. I've been part of a couple hiring committees, the Out on Campus Coordinator Hiring Committee, which we've basically interviewed everyone, just talking about some additional steps forward, possibly maybe opening up the role again to other candidates. So we'll see what that entails for us. Then we finally finalized the Campaign and Mobilization Coordinator Hiring Committee. So we are onboarding someone next week, which is extremely exciting for us. So this person would intentionally be used for either campaigning or mobilization for council and the executive committee. Furthermore, I've been helping organize for the 15 Black faculty hiring campaign, where I've been posting, you know, an SFSS news portion, media posters, email template campaign. You know, as folks know, there was a Senate motion that went forward to the table to hire cluster hiring of 15 Black faculty. And I've been organizing to ensure really that students, faculty, staff, or community folks have accessible measures to support. And that's by sending an email. You know, a lot of folks never know where to start when it comes to emails or letters of support. So I kind of wanted to make something that was easy for them to be a part of. From there, we kind of put posters up all over the campus, went to the Senate meeting, and it passed. So that's awesome. I'll actually put the SFS news thing we put up over in the chat. And then furthermore, I was part of the bullying and harassment case manager hiring committee, which almost honestly covered pretty great, so I'm not gonna touch up on that. Furthermore, I was part of a meeting about partnership agreement and wellness plan for Black students for health and counseling services. So we've been talking about short-term and long-term plans to support Black students. And yeah, we'll see how that goes in the future. We had an executive committee development session. We went through the SFU budget information session. I've been helping SFU 350 with their climate declaration letter and action. So SFU 350 has painted a mural and has been really calling on the university to commit to action items and strive for those actions. We're trying our best to have it up for September 27th when that meeting with VOG is to discuss the action items. However, the university has been pushing to almost take it down. So we've had conversations with the university this morning, ensuring that they do not take further scary action because this is a really peaceful protest. Yeah, and today I helped out with Club Day booths, which no one came in, unfortunately, but yeah, I also wanted to know, I have 700 emails that I need to go through. People have been firing up my inboxes, which is so exciting because that means there's a lot of action, but I'm so sorry if I haven't reached you yet, but if you want to message me on like Facebook or Instagram, please feel free. Anyways, but next I want to show you some photos. So there's kind of some photos around campus. That first one up in the little corner is actually a button from the 2-year campaign that says put SOCA or the Attendant group in the sub. And it's pretty ironic because now they're here, which is awesome. Middle part in the middle is the poster that I put up in front of the sub building. We had a QR code on it that people could scan, which was awesome. And then the top right corner is actually the mural that SFU 350 painted. It's temporary paint, so it's easily washable. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's huge. You guys should check it out. Bottom left corner is our SFSS news and our endorsement. Middle one is me assuring everyone from SFU 350 that we'll try our best to like keep it there. That was after I talked to Joy Johnson as well about it, trying to get her to really support and stand in solidarity with us. And then the bottom right-hand corner is right after Senate meeting when the motion passed, and we're really darn excited. So yeah, that's all from me.
Cool. Thank you, Marie, for your update. And I believe that's no, it's not. Jess, you may go ahead.
Hello, I exist, Gabe. Okay.
Sorry.
There are things that I forgot to put on here because I forgot that we didn't meet for a week. So I was meeting with folks from SFU to learn more about the vaccine passports, especially for events. I've been getting a lot of inquiries on that. We're going to figure something out, I promise. I'm currently working on reviewing our room booking policies and keeping them updated so that we can have them ready within the next month or so. Then we had that week long of sub soft opening events and currently working with Ilham to create some media statement release on that for like the 1 month anniversary of the sub being open. Then we had the SFU stadium tour, and then we met with Teresa in her office. It was really weird to have an in-person meeting, but we discussed the motion that we had in July regarding the flags and the anthem. So we're going to follow up on her with that. And then we met with Embark because they had an event where we saw their gardens, and then we made like bunches of sage and everything, and then I took some carrots home. So that was really nice. And then something that I worked on for the last 2 weeks was the MSAA onboarding. I helped with inquiries from SFU 350. You probably see me running around every single day around the sub, so tabling as well. And then working with Matt for National Day of Truth and Reconciliation programming planning. He created a really cool logo, so we're excited to share that with folks. And then We're going to have some programming on the 29th within the sub for you folks to come by, cut out an orange shirt made out of paper, and then you can write something on there. And then there's also going to be a donation for IRSS. So that's on the 29th. And then from the 27th to 29th, there's going to be events and programming from FNSA, ISC, and OAP. So keep an eye out for that as well. And then we're going to involve our subtenants to do some screen printing. And then we met with other student presidents from other student societies such as UBC, UFE, UVic, etc., to discuss the BC vaccination cards and how that's going to work. And then, oh yeah, I totally took over ECA committee like this whole entire week. So you're mine now for tabling for the federal elections. This is your reminder to vote. If you haven't voted, please go vote on the 20th. I'm gonna tell you that now. And then Clouds Days was today. No one came, accidentally fall asleep. So I'm pretty sure that no one came though, but that's the end of my presentation.
That's a real move, Jess. Yeah, I meant to vote in the advanced polls, and then I didn't realize the last day of advanced polls is already passed. So I'll be voting on election day, and I hope anyone who hasn't voted will also vote on election day. The president hasn't voted yet, yeah. I would say, at least I'm getting it done. It's just last minute. Okay, that's everyone. Pardon me? Okay.
Am I the only one boiling?
It is quite
so hot.
Yeah.
You want to
Someone
open the
close the
door?
door. Yeah.
We could put
Yeah.
a chair in front of like the door outside so Folder could come in too.
No, I think it'll work.
Yeah, it might, well,
We could try.
we try, and if we hear a large increasing.
It does not work.
No,
brand new building.
I think it's locked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's locked.
Just like you can, Tony, you can leave the door wide open. Or, it's that door that maybe we can try to prop and open, and hopefully we get some airflow in here.
Service step doesn't work.
I think it's just locked. I just can't figure out how
It's-
to unlock it.
No, there's a larger issue.
Oh.
And we're still sorting that out. It's a design issue, so
Okay.
I don't have enough details, but
Hopefully that helps. Yeah.
Okay, we'll be fine.
Thank you for your point.
You know what? This is probably better. So students can come and get more.
Okay, so our next agenda item is under section 8, new business, and we'll begin with 8.1, which is titled Anti-TMX Day of Action. And this was submitted by the Environmental Science Counselor. And there is an attachment for this motion titled Protesting Safely Guide. And I'll read the question now. It reads, whereas the Trans Mountain Expansion TMX project is currently increasing their tanks twofold, adding 13 new tanks to their already existing 13 tanks within the Burnaby terminal, located next to the Simon Fraser University Burnaby campus. Whereas the probability of an oil spill of any magnitude in the Burrard Inlet as a result of the TMX lies between 79 and 87% over the course of half a century, creating devastating environmental impacts for BC's wildlife, and would increase in the risk of a tank farm caused fire from a 1 in a million likelihood per year to just 1 in 2,000 possibility, as assessed by the city of Burnaby, which is not including the hazard of potential forest fires caused by any tank explosion. Whereas the only intersection that leads to campus, being students' main escape route, is located right next to the tank farm and would what is, I think that's supposed to say essentially, leave students trapped on the mountain in the event of a tank farm fire. Whereas despite the threat the expansion poses to its students and the environment, SFU has yet to take a stance on the Trans Mountain Expansion project. Whereas the Anti-TMX Day of Action on the afternoon of Friday, September 24th, would provide the opportunity for students to listen to guests on the pipeline in regards to current safety and community concerns, and will allow students to march from SFU to Ghilardi intersection with the purpose of growing students and community awareness of the tank farms, increase pressure for SFU to oppose the TMX project, and promote future student engagement with anti-TMX events. must be one of the largest motions. Whereas the 2020-2021 SFSS Board of Directors passed issues policy IP6, climate justice and sustainability, which outlines on page 24, and I quote, the SFSS opposes under 2 subsection A, funding and construction of new and existing fossil fuel infrastructure such as the Trans Mountain expansion and Coast Gasline pipeline, end quote. Whereas the current SFSS stance is in full opposition to the TMX pipelines and continue to advocate and support climate justice initiatives and calls to action. Whereas Council passed a motion on July 16, 2021, committing to providing resources to support SFU 350, with whom this event is in collaboration, including funding and organizing resources, and promised to stand in solidarity with communities standing against pipelines. Whereas $1,100 is anticipated to be needed to provide adequate honorariums for 4 guest speakers, $250 for each speaker, plus an additional $100 for the opening speaker to do a land acknowledgement, of which the Teaching Support Staff Union, TSSU, will be providing up to $300. Whereas this event would require volunteers to help facilitate it, including aiding with tasks such as ensuring participants are compliant with COVID-19 safety protesting guides, see the attachment, helping set up technology, such as sanitizing microphones, speakers, etc., talking to security, the liaison person, and guiding protesters along the route and accompanying Indigenous guests. Be it resolved that the 2021-2022 SFSS Council supports and endorses the anti-TMX Day of Action as recommended by the External and Community Affairs Committee. Be it further resolved that to recommend that Council supports this event through various means, which can include, but aren't limited to, social media advertising, volunteers, financial support through ECA budget and appropriate line items. Be it further resolved to also recommend that Council create a working group composed of volunteers from Council and community at large to volunteer at the anti-TMX Day of Action event. Is there a mover for the motion? Chloe moves. Do I have a seconder? Marie seconds. All right, so Chloe, as the mover of the motion, you have the floor first.
Okay, before I do anything, I'd like to move to amend the motion, to change the term events to demonstration in clause 5, as well as event to demonstration in clause 8, 10, 12, and 13.
Okay.
And sorry, add a clause at the end to say, be it resolved to appoint Shelley Holland as chair of the anti-TMX Day of Action working group. And I'll send these into the chat as well.
Perfect. Is there a seconder for those amendments? Abby seconds. Chloe, did you have anything to say on the amendments?
There's more technicality. They don't really change the meaning of the motion. Just because we have to set that in the event. And then also, I didn't realize that I needed to chair the working group or appoint myself to chair the working group, so that's why I added the last clause.
Okay, sounds good. Was there any questions on the amendment on the floor? All right, so we'll put the amendment to the main motion to a vote. Oh, that's why my computer here froze. Are we still good on can everyone still hear us?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious because my computer here froze. I wasn't sure if that's right as well. We'll put the amendment to the main motion to a vote then. All those in favor of this amendment, seeking unanimous consent, and if you would like to vote against or abstain, please raise your hand now. All right, I'm seeing no objections to the amendment to the main motion is carried unanimously. And so we've returned back to the main motion now as amended, and Chloe, you still have the floor if you'd like to explain the motion for us.
Thank you. Also, please, interrupt me at any time to tell me to talk louder or slower. So first, I really wanted to say thank you to Matt, who's not here, but he helped me enormously with the motion and the briefing note, as well as guiding me on how to go about presenting the motion. Corbett for also helping me with the motion and answering my questions. Just for replying to my unnecessarily long emails about COVID restrictions and for reading and editing the motion and briefing note. Dave, you helped me pass the motion at the ECA committee meeting yesterday. My respect for you has gone up after chairing my first meeting. I don't know how you do it. And lastly, a big thank you to Marie, who got me in contact and connected to anti-TMS activism in the first place. So thank you. I just wanted to say that I feel really fortunate to be on council the same year as such a supportive and amazing exec team. And thank you for helping me get this motion to council. So moving on to the motion itself, the purpose of this motion is for council to show their solidarity with the anti-TMS Day of Action, to support the ECA committee's passing of the motion, to partially fund the speakers for the rally, and to form a working group of council volunteers who can help out on Friday, September 24th, and attend a practice version of this event this Saturday. This motion is not to approve the event itself. It'll be happening regardless of if this motion passes or not. This is just to show that SFSS is in support of this day of action. So I've been working on the anti-TMS Day of Action since the beginning of August with a few other individuals from SFU 350 and CSFU. The purpose of this is to put pressure on SFU to take a stand against the pipeline and to get more students involved who do not know about the TMX or the Harvard Project. The Board of Governors meeting is September 28th, and this rally, alongside the mural that was painted in Pablo Mall, is meant to show SFU that students want action. I won't go into too much detail about the harmful effects of the transnational expansion as was laid out in the briefing note, but I will highlight a few important points. So even though this pipeline is being built from Edmonton to Burnaby, this project will affect all of Canada and even the world. The pipeline runs through the same mountain that our Burnaby campus is situated on. And as SFU students, we have a responsibility to fight this injustice and be the example for other institutions across the country. We owe this to our society membership, the residents of Burnaby Mountain, and most importantly, the Coast Salish people whose traditional and unceded territory this expansion will run through. Also, this anti-TMS Day of Action is already supported by the SFSS through our issues policy, specifically IP6, climate justice and sustainability, and IP7, Indigenous inclusion and reconciliation, which I put in the briefing note if you'd like any detail on that. In addition to SFSS support, I would like to encourage counselors to motivate themselves to be a part of this working group of volunteers if they're able to. It will require you to help out from approximately 4 to 7 p.m. on the 22nd, the day of the event, and demonstration, and attend the mock rally on the 17th, which hopefully won't take too long. I know that COVID is still alive and well, and that it's scary to be in large crowds, but construction isn't stopping during the pandemic, which means that we can't afford to also not take action during this time. One of the attachments is a guide on how to protest safely, which we'll be advertising along with our demonstration. I'm also hoping that the volunteers and council will also help enforce these policies. So I hope you vote in favor of this motion. It is something I'm very passionate about, and I believe all of SFU students should be passionate about it too. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Chloe. And Marie, you're up next.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say after that. You've been doing really great, and thanks for bringing this forward. I think it's so important. I've actually was discussing with the sustainability office about the, presence of TMX in Burnaby, and it's really terrifying. So for instance, if there was to be a pipeline that unfortunately did burst on the Burnaby Mountain, it would need ultimately a solid amount of 8 minutes for us to actually get all of us down. That's including the elementary schools, the residents, anyone on campus, and that's completely impossible, really. So it's just terrifying to hear that SFU is not doing much. Joy Johnson recently came out with a statement noting that, we are doing what we can to send whatever, and then says, we're gonna build a fire hall on the mountain in order to ensure that if there was a burst or a pipeline or a forest fire coinciding with the pipeline or even the tanks, that would be helpful. Again, 8 minutes, that wouldn't be helpful. So really SFU is not doing anything in order to ensure that, you know, students, residents, people who live here, children who go to school here and live here as well are safe. And it's really terrifying. So thanks for making this. This is really awesome. I also think that, you know, organizers should be paid for the work that they do. It's tiring. People don't realize how much goes into campaign, organizing, mobilizing, the materials that you need to buy, the softwares that you need to buy, all of this different stuff. Actually, like what you're offering for like 1,000, 100 for a couple organizers is like not even as much as their labor is. So thanks again for ensuring that like organizers are getting paid for what they do, because a lot of times they're not given that opportunity. Even me with my own job being paid stipend is like an exception to like what other people are doing. So that's amazing. So I'm gonna vote in favor for this just because this is not even just about political anything. This is literally about safety, like for real. So thanks for bringing this forward. And I really encourage other folks to vote in favor for this as well. Sustainability office is terrified as well. They're terrified because their policies are barriers in order to actually stand in solidarity. So
Thank you, Marie. Abby, just double checking, is this a clarifying question to something Marie said?
Yes, I wanted the clarification. So the 8 minutes you mentioned, that's how long we would have to get everyone down the mountain before we're like trapped up here, or?
basically for an emergency, like an emergency route for before things escalate to the point where there could be damage, there could be, you know, people who are, you know, getting trapped between fires or whatever it is, or explosions and that sort of thing. That's like the time frame that a couple professors over here in this institution like brought forward. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Zaid, same with you. Did you have a clarifying question?
Yeah, I think that's good. I have two. So like with the first one, so the 8 minutes, is that basically just to like get down the mountain? Just like, I guess it could be, would that number be used in general for like the full evacuation of the mountain? And I think the second thing that I wanted to bring up, I missed a little bit of the context here, but I guess I was wondering if anybody could tell us a bit what happened with that town hall. I remember that happened, it was like 1 or 2 years ago with the Burnaby Police Department. I remember they had some concerns regarding the pipeline as well in its vicinity. So if anybody could speak on that, that would be great.
For the first question, I could probably get you more information on it. You know, if the 8 minute exact mark is just the worry of like the emergency that would be brought towards. I don't know if it's about coming down the mountain or whatever, but to bring in thousands of people down the mountain in 8 minutes doesn't seem realistic anyways. Your other question, I'm unsure how to answer that one. I don't know.
Is anyone maybe able to take a stab at that question?
It's no like big deal for the first one, and I was just curious about that. But yeah, for the second one, again, there was like a town hall. I remember, I think Corbett actually attended. So yeah, if you could tell us, that'd be great.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I attended. I remember the Burnaby Fire Department when the chiefs talked about it. Mark Bowen, the safety manager and stuff. SFU safety and security manager. Risk and safety, sorry. Also spoke. They all spoke against it, but I don't think anything, especially on the SFU side, nothing's really happened since then, as far as I can tell. Like the newest from the SFU side is the fire hall, right? Which is more of a reactionary response, but it doesn't really solve the issue. Yeah.
I guess I just wanted to confirm that the Burnaby Fire Department, like the chief spoke against that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I not even knew what they said from my memory. Some of it stuck really well. One was that based on the approval process, the Translink didn't even have, or TMX didn't even have to submit like a full report on how they respond to fires until like right before the place was supposed to be fully open. Other stuff was that they would, because it's federal, or it's because the private thing is a federal thing, they can't go enter the space. They'd have to literally wait at the gates for them to respond. And at the time, the responding units for a fire would be coming from like another town outside of, it was like a 4-hour drive or more. Like it was insane. I don't know if that's been improved on or changed since that meeting, but yeah, it's not great. Yeah, and then he also had a review of the tank farms with doubling the number of tanks, put them all into a situation where they're not supposed to be that close together. There's supposed to be a certain amount of distance between each tank for safety and fire safety and risk. And that's why it goes from like a 1 in a million chance to like 1 in 20,000 chance of a fire happening with all these double-wise tanks that are close together. So it's a really disturbing situation right now.
Thank you, Corbett.
Yeah.
You can go ahead. Oh yeah, I just wanted some clarification on the funding portion of the motion. The way I read the motion is to offer $800 of funding, is that correct?
That's already been passed by the committee at our budget. This is just kind of like, I forget how not worded it, you help me with that price, but just the essence, that's just acknowledging that is passed.
Yeah, it was in the, whereas clauses, I think, right?
I believe so.
Yes. Perfect. Abby, you got it.
That's my question, my clarification. I'm not sure that is this 4 people, so 4 people are getting $250 and one up.
I believe so. We're still working on securing less speakers, but don't know if any more than SFU, I'm so sorry. SFU. Not you, SFU. We also have Timothy, who's a citizen coming in, and we are also trying to get, I know we've been in contact with Brandon Warriors, so that's why I said up to 1,100, because we are trying to get up to 4 speakers, but it's a busy time and we're still in contact with trying to secure speakers. Sorry.
Just more of a repetition. Yeah, the SFSS mask not full, unfortunately. I found that out when listening to other other recordings I've been on in this room. So yeah.
Just a heads up to everyone in the sub. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. It's really hard to hear anything. I've missed the past like 2 questions, and a couple other people in the chat said the same. I know that you guys are probably speaking as loud as you can, but if somebody can also, the captioning is not picking it up great. So if anyone can just even put the question that's being asked in the chat, so we all can be on the same page. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Devin. I think this is a learning experience trying to figure out how this hybrid thing works. But it looks like Paul is up next.
Hi, yeah, so thank you very much for putting this forward. I'm most likely going to vote in favor. I just want everyone to also think about the other side of the pipeline, because there are some pros that come with this pipeline. Unfortunately, what the research has shown is that this is the best route for the pipeline to take. It is the most cost-effective route for the company and for the government. And this pipeline is creating thousands of jobs in the local community. At the same time, they are relatively safe, and it has the potential to bring in revenues of about billions of dollars for Canada each year. And as well, it will drive down our oil prices for within domestic oil prices. So that means gas will be finally not $1.60 for us. So I know these seem like very small pros when you outweigh the cons, but keep in mind that like these are also affecting thousands of people's livelihoods, careers, jobs, how they feed their families. So I understand the need to oppose it and keep in mind sustainability, and I'm going to be voting for. However, I do see some issues in terms of how we approach the overall movement.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Chloe actually linked a really good link in the chat. Might as well read it as well. It's a study that says that TMX provides no benefit or no net benefit in total. So I feel like we should really like inform ourselves on the basis of that. I also think it is the obligation of the government to push forward actual appropriate jobs in order to support folks. And we don't always have to do it in this means that does go against Indigenous sovereignty, and that does go against safety really in communities, especially since it's the Burnaby Mountain, we're going to be isolated, that sort of thing. The chances of it bursting is not necessarily rare either. These things do happen. And the more so difference in this is that if it does burst, we also have the tank farms. Additionally, with climate change, we have the increases in heat waves. We have the increases of forest fires. So it's not like other factors could come into play that could make that really dangerous. So it's not just like the possibility of a tank just bursting. It's also possibilities of other factors also affecting the tanks and making it a really intense environment. Additionally, in terms of our issues policy going forward with our stances, we really should be pushing forward to lower down fossil fuels, pipelines, carbon gas usage, and that sort of thing. So just wanted to put that out there, but no, I actually do appreciate you putting that out there as well, Paul, because I think that's a really big discussion that people are having as well.
Thank you, Marie. Chloe, what's the direct response as well?
Yeah, I guess I was just gonna say the same thing as Marie, basically, like I said, like, this motion isn't about will this protest happen or not, because it will happen. And it's also in our issues policy that we have already taken a stance against the TMX. So this motion is more just about getting counselors to volunteer, but I do really appreciate Polly bringing us the other side of the debate, because that's always good to see, look at both sides and have a good discussion about that. So thank you.
Serena, you're next on the speakers list.
Thanks, Gabe. Most of what I wanted to say has already been said, but I want to thank Chloe for bringing this motion forward. I think it's really important that we all vote in favor of this motion, especially given the climate crisis and the possible ramifications that TMX would have on the SFU and Burnaby Mountain community. I think it's really important to recognize how devastating like a potential fire or anything like that would be, especially given the nature of the last few years in terms of forest fires and that kind of thing. Also really in favor of like bringing more awareness to this protesting and having folks be paid for their labor. And another thing about the evacuation, I was just thinking about like that 8-minute timeline that some professors have put out. If anyone has ever tried driving up to campus when convocation is happening and all the traffic that's happening then, and then you think about like buses and who's disproportionately uses and relies on public transport is usually low income and BIPOC folks. I think it's really important that we recognize that as well as the folks who are most often on the front lines, being Indigenous and Black folks as well. But yes, I'm fully in support of this motion.
Thank you very much, Serena. Who is next? Oh, I think you're next. Go ahead.
I just wanted to understand a couple of things just for the sake of clarification. All right. So I wanted to ask about a statistic that you wrote in the motion, which was I think 79 to 82% for the. My bad. Yeah, and I just wanted to ask where that number came from specifically.
It's on the SFSS website.
Okay.
And that's where I got most of my information for the briefing now.
Perfect. And my other question was,
go ahead.
What do we know what the likelihood is of a tank farm leaking and then a fire spreading so that is that, and if there was a situation where we need to evacuate mountain and the 8 minutes that Marie mentioned, what is the likelihood of that happening? Do you have any statistics, any studies on this? Just so we can clarify a bit more about the likelihood of this happening?
Well, so as I included in the briefing note, the risk of a tank farm fire with the current tanks that are built is 1 in a million. And then with the addition of the doubling of the tanks that are built, that will increase to just a 1 in 2,000 possibility. This is because, as COVID mentioned, they're keeping the same area of the tank farms, they're just increasing the proximity of the tank farms with each other. So that, I hope that answers your question. And then this didn't include, the city of Vernon conducted this investigation, and this doesn't include the chance of a forest fire occurring and causing, or like any external fires like spreading to the tank farm and causing explosions that way. And I think that's something we really need to think about because of, we saw an increase of, every year we're seeing an increase of forest fires. So this is just also adding to the likelihood of an explosion in the tank farm. I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Corbett, you had something to
Just to
add.
add on to, yeah, like the increased risk is, I heard that directly from the fire chief from Burnaby, one at the session a couple years ago. So that's where I recognize the number as well.
Yeah, thank you, Corbett. Zay, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have like a whole lot to say, but just, I guess like we're looking at it at a really, like a microscopic level here about whether or not to build this pipeline. But if we look at it just like in general in society overall, we are trying to move away from fossil fuels just because like the sustainability. Eventually we're going to be reaching the peak. I read a few papers about it as well. So like if we're going to be taking on large term projects like this that do have safety risks and whatnot, like we should be really keeping that in mind. And for those of us who are thinking about, I guess, the jobs and everything, this is just a step for society overall as we move away from fossil fuels.
Thank you, Zaid. Sorry that I'm on the floor. I had a bit of an epiphany. I think we may be on the wrong microphone, and that's why people are having a hard time hearing us. But I want to try that out and see if it's better for the people online. I know. Okay, anyway.
What are the chances we can get a microphone?
Oh, that's what these are.
No, I mean like.
Which way? Well, the problem is like where to connect to. That's the challenge, because this is built in for this stuff. So we just have to make sure it's all working.
We will we'll have to work on it because, sorry, just to interject here with it. We've had multiple meetings in here before where the sound hasn't been that bad. I'm not sure why. It's maybe it's just shit and but I don't, because usually for like executive committee meetings, for example, we use my laptop, and I feel like people like Marie, you've called in online before and the sound's been pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe something with your computer. I don't know. We'll have to play around with it a little bit more. But sorry, that was a bit of a intermission. Chloe, you had a direct response to the last thing that was just said.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, actually, I forgot if direct response has to questions that this, I just have some things that I wanted to add to that.
I'll allow it. I'll allow
But
it.
I should have done that.
Yeah.
So that just reminded me of, and I think it's included in the article that I sent to the chat, that President Biden's administration canceled the building of the Keystone pipeline, and that greatly affects the income that we would get from our TMX pipeline, because that was supposed to transport stuff from our products from our pipeline to the States. And so now we've lost a lot of funding that would be brought in from that cancellation. And I also highly recommend that whatever government goes in this upcoming election, that they also follow suit in canceling the pipeline that we're planning to build.
Jeremy, you're next up.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this might have been mentioned in person and I just missed it, but I just wanted to centralize a little bit more on Indigenous reconciliation, especially with what's been happening on the front line in the past 24 hours, if anybody is aware of what's been going on. In the past 24 hours, especially even 3 days back, tiny house warriors have been set up at the front lines where the workers of the pipeline took their own initiative to tear down their stuff, and there was physical altercations. And when the police did come, they were arrested the Indigenous people on their own land, rather than resolving the conflict as well too. So if you did want to look more into that, I highly recommend on Instagram searching up Tiny House Warriors, as well as I'll type the name of the person that is very involved in Lead It that I follow. So you can know what's going on with Indigenous people in the front lines trying to stop TMX right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy, for that and for putting that information in the Zoom chat there. Was there any other discussion on the motion on the table? No. Okay, so we'll I guess we'll put the question to a vote. I'm not going to read the whole thing again. I think we all know what we're voting on here. So I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion seeking a unanimous consent based on discussion, and if you would like to vote against or abstain, please raise your hand. All right, I'm seeing no objections to the motion, so this has carried unanimously. And we have a couple more motions. The first of which is setting the date for the annual general meeting. And this is a recommendation from the members meeting planning committee. And so I'll read the motion. And it reads, whereas the members meeting planning committee met on September 10th, 2021. Whereas the committee reviewed information provided by SFU on course counts for Monday to Friday during the week of October 25th to 29th. Whereas the committee discussed the rising COVID-19 numbers. Whereas the committee recommends that the annual general meeting be held virtually and on Wednesday, October 27th at 6:30 p.m. Therefore, be it resolved that council call the date for the 2021 annual general meeting to be on Wednesday, October 27th at 6:30 p.m. And be it further resolved that the 2021 annual general meeting be held virtually. Do I have a mover for this motion? Actually, did you want to move it because you brought it forward? Do you want to second it, Abby? Okay, so Corbin moves and Abby seconds. Would you like to introduce the motion?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. So the members meeting planning committee has met a few times and to talk about the AGM itself. I was able to get some course count numbers for the last week of October from SFU for Monday to Friday, from morning to evening, and with a breakdown of different time ranges like 8:30 to 10:30, 10, things like that. And not to be no one's surprise, the vast majority of the time opening is the evenings from 6:30 onwards. But Wednesday and Thursday and Friday were the best days that had the least amount. We didn't think trying to have an AGM on Friday, 3 days before, one being a Friday and two, it'd be on the 29th, so the 31st, Halloween is on Sunday. So I figured most people would be partying from Friday onwards. So I can't see a lot of people wanting to come to the annual general meeting when they could be out dressed up for Halloween. So we realized, okay, council's actually supposed to schedule the meeting on that Wednesday anyways, so why not duplicate it? So since you all have that time off anyways, right? Or rather scheduled for a meeting. So that's the reason why we chose that day. The reason why we went to virtual is we had a discussion as well in the group about with rising COVID numbers, or the COVID numbers being what they are, the new public health orders and stuff. Because we don't know how it's going to go, if it's going to start going down, if it's going to go up, or just stay the same. It would be safest and most accessible to have it as a virtual meeting, so try and do some hybrid or have it in person. Also it'll be a cheaper event because we would just have to generally pay for some IT support, either through SFU or if we go say with a different organization to help us run the virtual side, like the Zoom style software. Then the rest could be used for prizes and other things to help encourage students to come. Because we wouldn't have to pay for space or any of that kind of stuff. We are still aware of the challenges that people had with last year's, where Zoom webinar is not the greatest thing for allowing for debate on issues, because there's just one line as opposed to like a yes side, a no side, and a question line. So Kashish is looking into alternatives. We do know Zoom webinar does work, but it's not ideal in some cases, but it's a good default backup. So we can contact community events to help us with that support there. We can also talk to them to see if they want say to use over to Microsoft Teams, because SFU switched over to that software as opposed to Zoom. So we might be able to look into if that's better for us or not. I can have that discussion soon. So that's generally the reason why we chose October 27th. If you say yes, that sets the day, and then like if council says yes to this, that sets the day, and then I've already started working backwards on like deadlines that need to be done for certain types of things, like the various financial reports that we made, for talking about communications for the campaign and messaging and all that kind of stuff. And we'll set up a dev session as well for council to go over the council campaign and how to encourage students to attend virtually. We do realize though, no matter what time you choose, but morning, afternoon, evening, there will be a percentage of the students that can't attend because either classes or, especially in the evening, going to work or other kinds of community activities or other commitments they have. But this seemed to be the best option from an academic perspective.
Thank you, Corbett. Zay, you are on the list.
Yeah, I would love to say, my laptop, first question was, did we decide on the time in this motion here?
Oh, yeah, 6:30 p.m.
Okay, that's perfect. Second thing was, how can we help decide the prizes? That was really fun. I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about our last AGM. We had like I think it was a record-breaking number of attendees there. We had a lot of people come out when we did it online. It was much more easier for everyone. So it's great that we're doing that again. Oh man, I don't want to say that I forgot. I'll listen to myself again.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll let you as well. Abby, you're up next.
Great for the chunk of what I was gonna say. I was gonna talk about that it's online, to do the numbers last year, and obviously, did the numbers last year, it's good that it's online. It's too awkward, but. No.
Did you forget to?
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right,
so I guess my question was, what is the deadline that we're going to set for, I think, for submitting referendum questions? And what are the bylaw changes that we're looking to make? Are we going to be putting the ones from, I think the elections, we have the referendum questions and the changes there, we'll be carrying those forward. This is like a governance committee kind of thing, but I'm not on governance, so I'm curious.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, that's a good question. We have to have our agenda and notification, all our package out to membership 21 days in advance of the meeting. So since on the 27th, that means 5th or 6th you want to get sent out. Which means for us as a council, we have to approve the agenda on the 29th of September. For that, if you want students to do petitions to have a member's petition, I believe that's the terminology. There's two different terms, one for SGMs and one for ADMs, right? They're both effectively petitions, but they have slightly different names in the Societies Act. So we could
Requisition, I think.
requisition, yeah.
Yeah.
So that could be, it would have to be submitted to, officially, it has to be also be 21 days in advance. But we would, timeline wise, the exec could approve it on, say, the 5th, or the 4th when they meet. So if that's like, if it runs all the way to pretty much the due date of when things actually have to be done, exec could approve it then. And it's also, exec could approve other agenda items if necessary, if say something came, there's some delay, council can fully approve every one of them on the 29th, September 29th. That could happen there. So that's kind of two, but ideally I have everything, I'd like to have everything from the council, but if there's some kind of reason or as a backup date, there's still October 4th. So
Sure.
I guess my question was for, just like general students and non-counselors, how would they be able to submit referendum questions for the agenda there? And also the process for us as well.
Okay. So referendums are actually separate from the AGM. It's a separate process and there would be a separate date time. I'll have to double check it, but it's roughly around the same time frame. So we could have it dual.
Just as a point of clarification, did you mean like just motions for the annual general meeting, or did you mean referendums?
Separate referendums.
I guess this is regarding, well, okay, never mind that. We're gonna have to do it separately. But yeah, I guess for just motions then for the annual general.
Yeah, effectively it's the same process, a petition. And so they need to get around 1,500 signatures. Ideally, what the data would have to be submitted for us to be able to approve it or something would be, or if it gets over 1,500 signatures, it bypasses everybody. It bypasses council and exec. If it gets less than that, then they have to take it to exec or council on specific days to try to ask for it to be included. And they have to choose choice of doing so or not. So we need to send out notifications now and with the forms and stuff. The challenge though, as far as I understand, is our process requires in-person signatures. And so going around, there's a lot of students that comes to go around, people may not feel comfortable with it, they have that option. So yeah, I can have all that stuff captured and sent out for members. I most likely it had to be on, if they needed something submitted that was under the thresholds, then probably have to go to exec just from a timeline perspective to get the most time for people, because you run around getting 1,500 signatures isn't always fast. Sometimes it really is, sometimes it's not. It's you never know. So yeah, as for other bylaws and stuff, we had the ones from the referendum that didn't get enough quorum, but still had really high yes vote thresholds. We can try that again, either as a referendum or as part of the AGM agenda. So that's something I think council should determine which method they think is best.
Go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, I don't think I'm speaking time here, but I just guess I wanted a little clarification on what we can include in referendums versus for the AGM's agenda there. And also for councillors, if we wanted to bring something forward, would we just submit that as a motion to council, like be resolved to add the following motion to the agenda for our 2021 AGM, like something like that?
Yes, so a couple questions. So the last one, yes, councillors as board members can bring something to council and ask the assembly to approve it, or students have to do the petition outside of council. That's part of the Society's Act requirements. Other stuff that can go on the agenda itself, we do special resolutions or ordinary. Special resolutions are things that have a higher threshold. Generally, they are bylaw changes, constitution changes, removal of a director, and there's a few other things in the Society's Act, but not coming to me right now. Ordinary resolutions are just resolutions that need simple majority votes, and they are generally could be things like I would say policy changes, as our rules are different from policy changes, but could be approval of, similar to last year's tuition combination vote. That was an ordinary resolution. You could have a number of those. You could have almost like mini, what's called non-binding opinion polls, effectively referendums without any binding ability inside the meeting itself. You can do things like that. Those will generally require only simple majority. When you're doing things like special resolutions, you need to also give membership 21 days in advance. That's why you can't amend them at the meeting, because any amendments would need to go out again to students and stuff. So generally you want to make sure you get those right from the start. So
and I guess to also piggyback off of Corbett's answer is that I guess maybe one component of your question was what determination, how do you come to the determination to put something to a referendum versus an annual general meeting? And I think the answer is there really isn't any real reason why you put something forward to referendum versus AGM. But the big difference is quorum for an annual general meeting is 250 students. And so if you have 250 people there, you can pass motions. The difference with the referendum is that you need what percentage?
5% of the voting population of that term. So
Yeah,
again, it's around 1,500 students.
Yeah, so it's much, you need a lot. Essentially, that is quorum for a referendum. And so that's why the bylaw referenda failed the last time around, is because yes, it got a majority, it got the 2/3 threshold to pass, but it didn't get anywhere near 1,500 people.
Yeah.
So
You know what to do.
So I do want to jump in. There is one thing that you can only do in referendum that you can't do at a general, annual general meeting or special general meeting, and that's fee changes. That's a requirement by the Universities Act that has only go through referendum. So
yeah,
just for clarity.
Yeah, that answers really what I was wanting to know, because I was just wanting to know, like, put the yes, no kind of questions into the AGM.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I read this stuff.
yeah.
Understandable, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Zaid. And it looks like you're up next.
I actually wanted to ask, maybe not for this AGM, I can understand a little bit of the worry of people regarding COVID and whatnot, but maybe for the next AGM. But this question goes out to both of them. So, is a hybrid AGM possible? Is that something we can do? For this AGM, I understand it was scared of COVID, but regarding higher numbers given online activity, higher attendance during online activity, plus hybrid might even up that a little bit more because people were at home when it was online, or people can be in university and at home. That might even up our attendance even more. Is that what are the thoughts that came up with this?
Yeah, we did discuss that. Hybrid is always a possibility. It does take a little bit of extra work, mostly on that sense of like, especially with the share, like just like around this meeting, like if you have 200 people online and they're raising questions and the chat's going off and stuff, as well as in person, it is a bit of a chance there's more logistics and more support would need to be mapped out ahead of time, but it would be possible. You might have to be more like yeah, it is possible. It's just some additional extra work. Like it's either simply always goes to go fully in person or fully online. But I also kind of agree. I think it's more accessible for the people that would be physically here. It makes sense for them to physically go to a location. But there will also be students off campus and stuff that should be accessible. Like why force a Surrey or Vancouver, primary Vancouver student to come all the way up here for an AGM? They're not going to come usually. So I think in the future, there's more likely to be always be an online component that's controlled, whether it's a more majority in-person meeting or not, simply because for accessibility reasons. And actually, I'd like to get that laid out in our policies in the future.
Clarification.
Yeah.
For AGM, what's the quorum again?
AGM is 250 to start, and then they can drop down to 175 and still maintain quorum. That's just allowed for like situations where after one particular vote happens, a lot of people leave suddenly, but they're only interested in that, and that causes quorum issues.
That's crazy. Last year there was like 800 to 900 people there, and then you said referendum is 1,500 people, right?
Online votes, total is whether for and against.
Gotcha.
And usually, and that's why often most of our fall referendums tend to be things like UPass or others that are almost always going to get a lot of people voting on, or the odd by-election, but a lot of our referendums tend to happen in the spring when we're doing executive elections as well, or general elections in the past, because you always have a lot more people involved in voting generally, and usually almost always got that threshold. But this last year was different because pandemic, trying to do all online campaigning sucks. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Damon, you're up next.
My question is significantly less serious. With this starting at 6:30, is council doing anything between 4:30 and 6:30 that day? Or is it just like chill for that 2 hours?
I was planning on canceling the council meeting.
Awesome. That's it.
Cool.
Hey, just a time check.
I'm sorry? What did
Sorry,
you say?
said just a time check.
Yes, I know. Joe Sell, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the right time to ask it, but if not, we can move it to somewhere else. But since we don't have Jen this year, I'm wondering if there's a plan to follow the steps that she did in making sure that people were as informed about how council meetings work or how the AGM is going to work. Because I remember last year during the AGM, there were a lot of people who were really confused and felt like they didn't have the right information to be able to fully participate in the AGM, and they felt that wasn't fair. So I'm just wondering if our AGM is next month, how are we going to be able to prepare to make sure all the students feel empowered and confident enough to participate?
Do you want to take that on, Corbett?
Yeah, so some of the stuff that Jen used could be reused with her permission. I can ask for that, like from the operational stuff. The actual content of the motions would have to be developed ahead of time, but we would have October, most of a good chunk of October to do that. And we could do similar format of just kind of like a Cliff Notes version of each item with relevant links and such, and be sent out ahead of time. It's important to be sent ahead of time. And yeah, but it makes a lot of sense. Like those were helpful for people at the agenda. Ideally, be getting that out ahead of time.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you the Cliff Notes of.
Yeah.
I'd like to think like it's a study package, so to speak.
That's a better term.
Would it be better to send it out to everyone initially, or would it be better to request within the email of, okay, the AGM, here are the motions. If you'd like to receive more information about this, follow this form, for example, and we'll send you an email of, because not everyone, my fear is some people might see out the motions and all that and see an application, the study package and see all that and be like,
yeah,
I'm not doing this.
It's too much.
Yeah, exactly. But if people want to read more on it and want to join the agent, they might be more inclined to like, okay, let me study up on this a little bit. Let me try and understand it. So would it be better to send it to everyone immediately, or would it be better to ask people, do you want this information?
You could probably, at the very least, you could, because last year we used a Vault link for people to download all the different items, the packages. We could do that again as an add-on to it, and that way it's their choice then to read it. You could also prep it saying like this particular motion has a lot of items, some will, some won't. But in many ways, it's no different than like all the amendments that we attach onto our meetings. The same idea, like an AGM is generally just like a board meeting but bigger, right? So I think you can argue that overall that the content should be accessible by their choice. And yes, having an additional study pack, well, I think is a secondary thing that could be good. Either as a link and then people can choose and just make sure it's clear and we push it out multiple times so people know what's going on. So, and we can have multiple board council members working on it, so it's not viewed as like just one person's perspective or something like that. Right?
Thank you, Corbett. That exhausts the speakers list. I'll just put a last call out for.
Question. So we're not going to get paid for the AGM.
Oh my gosh.
It's usually claimed as part of your time sheets.
Well, yeah,
because you are a member of the, and you can be there viewed as either as a member of the SFSS in general or as a board member being there.
Definitely put it on your work report.
Great. Capitalist.
Maybe.
Except not on council.
Okay. So I'm sensing that this is this discussion on this topic is exhausted, and so with council's consent, I'll put the motion to a vote. And again, just to reiterate what we're voting on, and the be it resolved clause reads, be it resolved that council call the date for the 2021 annual general meeting to be on Wednesday, October 27th at 6:30 p.m. Be it further resolved that the 2021 annual general meeting be held virtually. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent based on discussion. If you'd like to vote against or abstain, please raise your hand at this time. I'm seeing no objections, so this motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. I am just taking a look at the time. We're about 35 minutes away until the end of the meeting. And there is one item that I really would like council to get to before 8:30. And so I'd actually like to move to suspend the rules to consider section 12 of the agenda, which is in camera, out of order. And then afterwards, we'll continue on with the remaining two discussion or motions and this other two discussion items. Is there a seconder for that? Marie seconds. And the motion to suspend the rules is non-debatable, so I'll just put this to a motion at this time. But all those in favor, and if you would like to vote against or abstain, please raise your hand. Okay, this is carried unanimously. And so we will consider in camera at this time.
Yeah, we should.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
And once we actually pass the motion to go in camera, we need to create a breakout room for the people who are online. But we need to pass the motion to go in camera first. And so the motion, reads be resolved to go in camera for the remainder of the meeting. Is there a mover for this? Zaid moves. Is there a seconder?
Corbett seconds.
I don't know, Abby. You do get a lot of seconds.
I defer to Corbett.
Okay, Corbett seconds this motion.
I'm on the agenda.
We will put this to a vote. All those in favor of going in camera, seeking unanimous consent. All right, so this is carried. And so I'm going to pause the recording and we're going to create a breakout room for the people who are online. So please bear with me as I take a minute to do this. We just concluded the in-camera session, so we just need to move to go ex-camera at this time. Be it resolved to go ex-camera. Is there a mover for this motion?
History moves.
Abby moves, I guess history can second.
History seconds.
We'll put the motion to a vote on going ex-camera. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent. This is carried unanimously. And just acknowledging that it's 9 o'clock, we're half an hour over, and there are, I believe, 2 motions and 2 discussion items. Are these time sensitive or can they be postponed? Zaid?
I think I can just say that I'm pretty sure everybody's quite tired at this point. We had some heavy discussion and yeah, the 2 discussion items I put please address them next time.
Corbett, you put the other 2 forward? You're fine with them being postponed?
Yeah, council seat, I'm sorry, the Space Oversight Committee didn't go to the 29th. The AGM was passed. Was there any other motion I missed?
That was it.
Yeah, so I'm fine.
Okay. So with that in mind, I'd just like to move to adjourn the meeting and postpone any other business to the following council meeting. Can I grab a seconder for that? 20 seconds. Any discussion? Everyone heard what I said, right?
That would be considered as old business.
Yes, it would. No, it's just motions, right? Yeah. Okay, so we'll put this to a vote. All those in favor of adjourning and postponing all business on the agenda to the next meeting, remaining business on the agenda to the next meeting, seeking unanimous consent. Okay, so this is carried and the meeting's adjourned. It's 9 p.m. for the record. And I'll stop the recording, but I just want to say that this was a very, this setup hybrid, it was a for God's sake.